Senti un petit vent douce, lever ma chaîne ni pied. Senti liberté ni commencement la journée. La journée. Voyez un petit prière pour l'amour et la paix. Merci pour la vie et voyez un petit café. Sorti un petit kaila, paraît pour commencer. Fais un petit sourire pour commencement la journée. Commencement la journée. Chaque glow pour tes bras si d'eau. Les jardins à balayer la cour. Pour ce petit point, pas de travail pour rien, non. Fais ton idée, la vie de cacoa. Bon la vie pour laver, roulez au assis wash là et après rester, ouvert au assis caïa, quittez yo chercher, fallait piler sorte là pendant la journée. Est-ce bien changé? J'allais l'eau quand t'es bois assis d'eau, c'est que les jardins.
Bren, we are back here this evening and we are going back in time. Remember we said that we are talking about the graduation of the Laku. But to talk about the graduation of the Laku, there are a few things that we need to pay homage to. And there are some things that we consider as culture. Do we still consider them as culture because we're not seeing them anymore? Or do you consider them as was part of our culture and we have graduated from what it was to another? And so tonight we're going to be talking about some things that are important. And that is about footboys and tailboards. You remember that?
Well, yes. Basically, that was the era of the trucks. Because the trucks were these elements were part of the trucks. And these trucks were Bedford trucks at the time, I remember. And they were built in a specific way or in a particular way so that would accommodate the footboys. And so the trucks, when they built the boxes of these trucks, there was a tailboard on which the footboys stood up. They stood up on the tailboard whilst the trucks were being driven. And so that is where it all originated. And those trucks had different, I would say, tonnage. You had the 3-ton truck. I know of the 5-ton. And I do not know whether there were any others bigger than that.
Well, there was the 1-ton. There was the 3-ton and there was the 5-ton.
Mm-hmm.
So the 5 tons were being used in the big companies like AC Shillingford and Astafans and these companies to transport their goods from the port or from one location to the other. The 3-ton and the 1-ton were actually used for transporting people. and even as we spoke some time ago, especially the Freetown transporting houses from one location to the other. Now, it is important to note, as you said, that those trucks were all Bedford, and the Bedfords in those days came from England.
That's right.
And we will see as we go along, communities upon communities had the Freetown and one ton. So for instance, you'll find communities like St. Joseph, Maho, communities like Point Michel, the closer communities to the city of Roseau or to the town of Roseau at the time it was a town, had the 1 ton trucks, and those further afield, further away, would have the 3 ton trucks. So, for instance, in my growing up, there was this guy we call Kawe. His name was Oliver Roy. Kawe had he had, first I think he had a 1 ton, no, 3 ton, no, a 1 ton truck. Kawe had a 1 ton truck, and the 1 ton truck, if memory serves me right, it was 2782. He had two trucks. I mean, but this first truck was a Bedford 1 ton truck, subject to correction. But I know he had 2, a 3 ton and a 1 ton. But if my memory serves me very right, he actually had the 1 ton first, and he had his brother, who is still alive, by the name of Tony Roy. I'll be speaking to Tony tonight. I'll be calling Tony in a while so that he too can give us his experience, because we in our time growing up, we maybe took the footboys for granted, but they had an integral role to play. And the integral role that they had to play, just imagine coming from Vickers and having to ride from Vickers to Roseau and having to pass through the Imperial Road, that is, having to pass through Marigot and so on to get to Roseau for 3 hours. And you had to be behind that truck where there were bags of food and other items on top of the truck, on the tailboard of the truck, and the food boy had to be there to ensure that the food is safe.
Well, that was very interesting, because that was quite an ordeal, especially those coming from La Plaine when the chemin au vent was made, because they would have to travel from La Plaine to Roseau, and the food boy would have to be on the tailboard whilst the truck moves from La Plaine with all maybe items that the people wanted to come down to Roseau to sell. And then when they sell those items, normally they would buy their commodities like their bed. It was very, very interesting to see these trucks carrying beds, fridges, and for instance, tables, and passengers are still in them. I do not know whether you had the opportunity to ride in a truck.
You asking me if I had the opportunity to ride in a truck? Joke that, man.
I don't know. Where did you rode from where?
From Vickers to Roseau.
Okay.
All right. So in Vickers, in the very early times, there was, as I said, Kawe. And Kawe used to go to Penville by a lady named Mardelis Etienne.
Where did he pass?
He had to pass through Amba and go to Penville.
Right, because
Lower Penville.
Because at the time, well, I don't know. Yes, well, because these.
Oh, you're talking about where would he pass to get to town?
Where would he pass
to get to town?
Yes.
Well, he has to pass after he comes from Vickers, from Penville, goes to Vickers, and from Vickers to Thibault, and then he would drive in the early days, before the road actually was built on the west coast.
On the west coast.
He had to pass through Marigot.
Exactly.
He had to pass through Calibishi, Benz, Woodfordale, Wesley, Marigot, and drive into Concord to get into Roseau.
Right. He would have to pass through the Imperial Road.
Imperial Road, that's what we call it.
Right, at the time.
Days.
Because that was quite an ordeal to travel that
Someone's
long.
already on the telephone. On the telephone, let's see what the person. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller. Good evening, caller.
We'll have a headphone.
Good evening to you, caller. I'm sorry about that, caller. You have to call me back. Yes, and as we were saying in those early days, you know, it was not a very easy task for the drivers. So the guys had to get up like 3 o'clock in the morning to really go get their passengers. The person wants to speak again. Let's see if we can get the person. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, sir, Mr. Cecil Joseph. How are you?
Fine, sir.
This is Carlos speaking. I come from Portsmouth. I listen to your great program every night, right? Every Sundays. Let me tell you something. What I can remember, my mind, right? Alex have 3 of them, 3 tracks as well. You have 3615, 3521, and 3207. Can you remember that?
I'm not quite getting you clearly, you know. Repeat yourself, please.
Repeat yourself.
I said, Alex, that's Big Steve, Alex Ray. You can hear me now?
Yes. Yes.
No, he has 3615, 3207, and 3521. And all of them are printed in the same color, like
Blue.
Blue and cream.
Blue and cream, that's correct.
Yes, so that's kind of, I can remember those good. We used to go and carry boxes from Opak to Longhouse those days. You know? Oh?
Yes,
Thank you.
I'm
We're listening to you.
The person hung up.
Right.
Sorry, so yes, as we were saying that in those days, you know, the football. I think let me play a little music and then get back to the program, because I want to get Tony. Tony is alive today, and I want him to be a part of the program where he can tell us exactly what happened. So I'm going to try to get Tony.
Mm-hmm.
Est-ce que juger comment la vie est? Sorti un petit chalet, mi soleil qu'a levé, tandi mélodie, musique qui a chanté. Senti un petit vent douce, lever ma chaîne ni pied, senti liberté ni commencement la journée. Sorti un petit kaila, paraît pour commencer. Fais un petit sourire pour commencement la journée. Commencement la journée. Chaque glow pour tes bras, si d'eau. Pour ce petit point, pas de travail pour rien, non.
Okay, we have on the line with us Tony from Vikas. Now he's living in Bonn. Good evening to you, Tony. My God, it's call cut off. Let's see if we can get Tony again. I'm going to try my best to get Tony again. The call got cut off, and let's continue playing the music until we get Tony. Well, Brain trying to get in touch with the guy. We got him on the line. I don't know if he got cold feet, but I really wanted to talk to Tony. Tony actually lives in Bonn. He's from Vilkas. And his brother, Kawi, as I was saying to you, and anybody else around can call in and can give their own information. But I remember his brother, Kawi, had a 1-ton truck, and he actually, Tony Roy, the brother, small of the brothers, was the food boy of that 1-ton truck. And I don't know what you remember of those 1-ton trucks.
Oh yes, I remember these 1-ton trucks, traveling on them from Roseau to St. Joseph. As you know, there are a couple 1-ton trucks. There were also those heading to, when the road was made, up to Colliho. But the original times where I remember traveling with my dad, going on holidays in Layo, because that's where he was from, traveling on those trucks and with the food boys at the back. And very often when we are traveling, especially during rainy season, it was not easy for the food boys because they would not be able to actually go in and, be able to shelter from the rain.
I want us to talk about that a little later, because we need to talk about the weather, that those food boys had to actually go through. So for instance, the 1-ton trucks, if I remember, those persons who can help me will help us. They had some 4 seats and 4 long seats.
That's right, made out of wood.
Made out of wood, and they would have placed some type of sponge and some other cloth or something, polyester, onto that sponge so that you could be comfortable with a back.
Yes.
And there are about 4 of them. So the 1-ton trucks used to take about something like 16, between 14 and 16 people.
Yeah, right.
And as I was saying to you, I remember as a boy, Kawe used to have to, because he was one of the first drivers in Vickers, and Kawe had to go to Penville, Lower Penville, to get passengers. But more so, he would have gone to a lady by the name of Delis Etienne. She had a shop, and he would have had to maybe even do messages for Delis, so that she could come back to sell to the people of Penville. And those guys in 1968, 1969, 1970, 1971, those guys were actually living at the latest 3 o'clock in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
3 o'clock in the morning, because they had to make something like 3 hours drive to get to Roseau, to get people to actually come to school, not go to work, because to go to work you have to be coming home on a weekend and going back home on a Monday. So you find in those days, Monday, Wednesday and Friday, the trucks would have to leave the community or communities and come to Roseau.
They would not be traversing the community, let's say if they were leaving Vickers or Penville, every day. They would have days.
They would have days. They would leave
Monday, Wednesdays and
Fridays.
Okay, good.
Because remember, those days the roads were tough.
The roads were tough.
Right.
But basically, as you said, these people, the shopkeepers would engage the truck drivers to purchase items to them in Roseau. Probably their sugar,
and not just
the
the flour.
flour.
Some people cannot go down to Roseau.
Yeah, right.
So they would give also
the truck driver the money.
Yes.
And write what they want, the items they want.
Mm-hmm.
So the truck driver would have to go to the wholesale departments when they get into Roseau to purchase the items to bring back for them the same day.
But many a times you find that you have a lot of provision at the tailboard of the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
So while people are inside of the truck, and the tailboard now would have the food boy. Now that food boy, as you were saying earlier on, all right, would not even be part and parcel of the passenger area.
No, he would have to stand at the back.
He had to stand at the back for
and
a few
hold.
hours and hold. No. I know that I come to understand the hard work of these guys. So what I would have really like to find out, when sleep would take you, what would you do? Because sleep would take you.
No, you cannot sleep on that. You cannot sleep on that because basically the driver would not even know if you fell off.
But
so therefore you had to make sure that you were very much alert holding.
But I remember, right? I remembered as a boy. I do not know why those things stay in my mind, but I remember that those footboys used to tie themselves in a funny way. Their waists and their hands, a funny way. So if they take a nap, because most times when what they do, they hold the top of the truck, and they place their head onto the bag of food.
Right.
Let's go to the telephone. Let's see what that person has to say. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Mr. Cecil Joseph, it's me again, right? Mm-hmm. My fellow callers. Let me tell you what I can remember. So those days, I used to go. My mother used to take me to Rosso, like Marubi. You know, you call my Marubi, Libra, right?
Marubi
so
Libra.
My grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes my mother, Captain Cyril, deceased, used to take me as well. So we used to go. The trucks used to go Rosso on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays. You know, I can remember those days good. And then passengers only 4 seats. You have a load like bags of copra and other cargoes, you know, on the tailboard. But there always a lot of space for the tailboard, for the footboy to stand up on one of the ends, either the left end or the right end. And no sleeping out. You can't sleep because he's working. Unless if it's raining, you have to have a space in between the cargoes then. But he couldn't sleep because he's working, you know. It was very tough those days. I can tell you, we used to pass by, when we reach Berlin, we go on the side and end up all the way to a place called Norway. Like, they used to have a little dashing and chicken, you know, all the way up there. And
that's on the eastern side of Dominica, right?
Yes. We never used to have we never used to pass by Postal side because that road was cut here, you know, those days. And by Antima side, end up right on the territory side, and you know, but it was really fun, you know, in the early morning. So let me tell you something. Finally, so since those days, Mr. Joseph, I would get up early until now. Because that was staying me. Because the time I used to get up to go Rosso with my grandmother or sometimes my mother, all 2 o'clock in the morning, you have to get up. And since that time I get up early, rise and shine the colors. Okay, so that's what I could do. Bye bye.
Thank you very much, caller. Thank you so very much. So yes, we were talking about the footboys and to be at the back of that truck, with so much cargo that you have to protect, because remember the cargo is not, it doesn't belong to the truck owner, and it doesn't belong to the footman. So he has to ensure
that he doesn't fall off.
Mm-hmm. Someone's on the telephone. Let's see what that person has to say. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I want to share something with you. I had 2 of my cousins, Bernard and Cornelius Cavanier. Hello.
Yes, go ahead. We're listening.
We're hearing you.
Yes, and they were truck drivers from Portsmouth. And one day, Cornelius, who was the footboy, they were going down from Pockersay, and he was trying to shift from one end of the tailboat to another, and he missed and fell down on the road. And when Bernard got to Marigot, Cornelius was not there. And it was, you know.
And what happened to Cornelius?
Well, Cornelius had got a ride from another truck that was going down, but Bernard was kind of very concerned because he did not know what happened to Cornelius.
You're talking about Bernard, we used to call him the Moss.
Bernard Cavanier.
Is it the guy that we used to call the Moss? Is that gentleman you're talking about?
Yes.
Yes, he used to drive. He used to have a lot of trucks in those days, I remembered.
Yeah. Well, the first he had a truck, and I was one of the passengers because I went to Wesley High School.
Mm-hmm.
And we took the Transinsular Road to go to school for years.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. At that time, there was no sponge on the seats. It was just the
I was going
plain
to say that.
old cardboard.
Hardboard, yes.
Wow, that has to be in the 60s, right?
Right.
Early 70s.
Early 70s.
And she's very right, because when I went on the trucks, there was no sponge, just the bare wood.
The bare wood.
Nothing at the back, just bare wood.
And the thing was, I was very small, and I did not pay for my ride, so Bernard made me start on a female that paid her ride.
Wow. From that for 3 hours.
For 3 hours, and I hated it because on Monday morning I had to leave Bonn at 3:00 in the morning.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And I was only 12 years old.
Oh my God. I can imagine. No, you can laugh that. No, you can laugh.
I can.
Yes. Anyway, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Yes. So yes, Brain. So in those days, the football for me had a challenge.
Oh, of course.
Because they have to focus on ensuring that the food remains on the truck until it gets its final destination.
Not only the food, whatever the people purchased in Roseau had to remain secured. So their responsibility was to ensure that those things on top remain on the top.
No, we were talking about going to the country. I'm talking about because we talk about going to the country.
Yes.
I'm talking about. You want to talk about going from Roseau to the country?
Well, I'm talking about even when they leave the country, because some of them would have to bring things to people who they knew in Roseau.
Okay.
So they would probably have their food. Because remember...
Hold on. Let's hold on for someone's on the line. Good evening to you. Yes, good evening.
Good evening.
What's that?
I remember. I really.
You'll have to call us back. You have to call us back.
Yeah.
You have to call us back. Because
Your line is bad.
Yeah, your line is bad. Yes.
I was saying that coming to Roseau, remember a lot of the students who came to school in Roseau had to be boarded. They stayed at people's homes. So the parents would have to send down a bag of food. So very often the bag of food would be on top of the truck, and the food would have to make sure that the food is secured. Because remember, the children couldn't come back, or the students couldn't come back to their homes every day. Some of them were staying in Roseau over the weekend for the whole week.
Let's see what that person has to say. Good evening to you.
Good evening. Cecil, what's up?
I'm fine.
I know you recognize the voice already.
Peter, you live in Roseau.
Cecil, you remember, you recognize the voice?
Yes, but I said that you lived in Roseau and you're only 40 years. Tell us.
Anyway, Cecil,
Yes.
I can remember a man by the name of Mr. Mosey.
Oh, that's Billy.
Oh, all right. Thank you very much, sir.
Yes.
Mr. Moses is a man, he is originally from Fishland. And I remember he used to have his truck, which I used to be around him as a little boy from school. And he had a guy by the name of Kerosene. His right name was George Packett. He's a short guy. Well, he passed now. Both of them passed. And Mr. Moses used to have his truck, but he used to come down by the bay, Roseau. At that time, it's Roseau that used to be raining. And every Monday, he would take out the wood and put it where Garaway Hotel be there. There was a little shop there, as you know, and there was an empty little spot.
Yeah.
And I used to help him myself. Well, I used to put the little strength I have. And about 4 guys used to put down the wood there on Monday morning, and then they come in and stay by the bay for the whole week. And Friday afternoon, by about 4 o'clock, getting some more guys to put it back on for Saturday morning to take people from Granby to Roseau and to tighten up the seats and so on. But Mr. Morris from Granby, which I know him very well, he used to have a truck doing the same kind of a thing. But Kerosene, George Packett used to be with him. And I remember Mr. Sally from Granby. I know him very well. It was a blue truck, Freeton truck. All these trucks I'm naming there is Freeton trucks. And they all had their football. And I remember them very well. And Mr. Nico from warping waving. He used to have his truck doing the same thing. But these guys used to come down Roseau and stay by the bay during the week to carry stuff from the port to anywhere business place. And on Friday afternoon, these guys put their wood up. They used to call it a hood. So you put load on top of the tailboard and you put load on top of the hood. Because you cannot put so much load on the tailboard because remember it's a rope. So you put in mostly all the load on top of the hood, and then a section of the load on the tailboard. So I remember that because vibes good because I used to be around Mr. Moses for a very, very long time. And as a youth man, I used to stay around him, seeing the vibes. So I had a clear idea what used to happen with the tailboard. I myself used to be on the tailboard too, but not in terms of passengers and so on. When we doing little run-ins around Roseau after school or during weekends and so on. So I like that topic you have just said because I know a lot of people can call on that same thing. Because tailboard, I fall on the tailboard many times already and I get blues when I go home because I have to tell the old queen how I find myself getting that blues.
Getting squishy.
Yeah, I squishy because he was a man, he had a lot of love for me. That's why I used to respect him a lot, Mr. Moses. But he passed also too, and I know he's originally from Pichelin. Take care of yourself. I listen to the rest of the program.
Thank you.
Right. Yeah. But as a little boy, I must tell you, Cecil, I had to hop on the tailboard of Mr. Bruni's truck, Danes Bruni. We had a couple boys, and when he was driving the truck, we run behind the truck, and we hold the tailboard. So wherever he doesn't know, we at the back. So we would call that taking our VEP.
Yes.
So many a times I got a good cuttass from my father.
Well, you see,
doing that.
I never got caught. I never got blows because it was fun for little boys, for young boys to do. You hold the rope, and then you sling.
You sling at the back.
At the back.
And you hold.
And you hold in, slinging, hoping that you would not fall.
And the man is driving.
Or sometimes on the side of the truck, you hold the rope and you try to hold that pillar that is holding the back of the rope, and you get onto the truck and you take in your.
Many of us did that, and some of us fell off and got properly squished.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Cecil.
Good evening.
I'm calling. I'm listening to your program.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from way down south. However, I spent quite a number of years or time, I should say, in Vickers. I have not heard you mention about Mr. Anise Augustine.
But you older than me, mommy.
No, I'm not older than you, Mr.
I only remember Tony. I remember Tony. I remember Kawe. I remember Alex. I remember Daw. I remember Evans.
Daw, Anise was just there when Daw was there. You're quite right. Kawe and Peter.
Yes.
And Fufan.
Well, Peter.
Peter. Yes, Peter.
No, I'm not saying to you because you listen to your device. So lower the volume on the device so you can follow us.
And let me tell you, forget to mention too, when they used to leave the road going up, I don't know how you call it, by Edward Libra's home there. And go up that road there. Opak. The truck had to reverse and go back and forth before I could take the turning. You know, saying that.
That was we're not let finish. You know, we just start. We just start to talk.
I know. I'm just putting my 2 pence.
Yes.
Yes, 3 o'clock. If you miss that truck, you're done for the day for Roseau. Maybe you have to wait
for another day.
Truck used to go down Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays.
And
so
Saturday.
If you miss Monday, you have to go wait until Wednesday. And if 1 o'clock you miss the truck coming out from Roseau when you're sleeping in Roseau for the...
And you have to have somebody to sleep in Roseau, eh?
You know what I mean?
Yes. All right then. Thank you.
Them were the days. Okay then. I'm listening.
Yeah.
But these trucks were very dangerous. A lot of people don't know that. These trucks were very dangerous, Cecil, because it was very easy for their brakes to give way.
Well, I don't know about the brakes. I think this trucks had some good brakes.
No, because the Bedford trucks, one of the weaknesses, and many people did not know that, but I learned that from Mr. Bruni and Mr. Huxley Shillingford. Because when these trucks are fully loaded, many people were not aware of that. Whilst the truck is going, especially Bedford trucks, one of the weaknesses of these trucks was that if you had it in a particular gear, and to shift from the other gear, because it was a kind of thing, long gear, that you had to move first, second, third. It was not these automatic things that you had. It's gear shift system.
No, what I suspect those guys were doing, because when they are about to approach a hill, and let's put it that they're in third gear, they quickly get themselves into first gear, and they will go up the hill, and you hear this truck doing
under stress.
So that is why many a times that
But you have to be pumping that brakes.
People in the community will determine which truck is coming. So I remembered as a boy living in Tobino, having to go to Roseau. We could hear the sound of the truck coming from the cemetery on the hill, coming down the hill.
But the vehicles you're talking about?
Vehicles I'm talking about. So you would know the sound of Alex. Alex had a 3-ton truck, always had 3-ton trucks. Kawi had a 1-ton. So you would have a different song. So my auntie would wake us up by 2:30, 2:30, and say, Kawi Kavini or Alex Kavini. All right, so you have to get up, go by the road, stand, and to wait for the truck for you to enter and to get to Roseau. Someone's on the line. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Mr. Historian. Good evening, Mr. Blah. You had many a ride on those trucks, yes.
Can you recall who had the only one on the island called Minimog?
Was it Mr. Andrew?
It's the only one on the island.
Could you tell us?
You all forgot a fella from Mao, and he was afraid of, how we call it, smoke herring. A fella by the name of Simon. You show him a smoke herring, and he run and leave his truck. Now, that mini bug was owned by the man that owned Springfield, Archibald.
Okay.
He was the only one on the island. So I just thought I'd let you know. And the fella in Maho, he used to take passengers from Massac back to Maho and Roseau. But you show him a smoke herring, and he run. You know, he was afraid of a smoke herring. But I'm listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. No. Talking about the truck drivers, I'm talking about my area. My mom told me she came to town in 1958, and she came down on a man they called Peter. Peter is still around. 1958. That is like 63 years. Like 63 years. My mom came to town. Then had me go back country, sorry. And so you had the various trucks that were coming down from that hill, and we would have known that sound of the particular truck
based on the compression.
Because you had people who had preferences of the trucks that they would like to
come down
on. So many a times it doesn't matter who for my auntie, Kawe or Alex, the one that's coming first. So many other times Alex was always coming first because Alex wasn't going to Penville. All right? And so you find that Tony now, let's go to the telephone and then I'll come to Tony. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
Hey, Cecil, I heard you spoke about Tony. I know Tony very well. But one thing that had the truck had been looking more nice, well taken care of in vehicles.
Alex,
what about that guy they call him? What his name is it? What about Evans?
Evans, no, Evans didn't have the previous. Evans had plenty glare.
Yeah, but his truck was looking well taken care of.
No, don't get confused because he was also driving for Alex.
Oh, well, I don't know who you're driving for, but I know.
He was driving the free tons for Alex, so.
Oh, you're driving for somebody?
Yeah, he was also driving for Alex, yes.
But I know Evans is a fella, his truck is too well looking, pretty and so on.
I know he used to have a lot of glare on his truck when he had his own truck.
But you call it glare?
Yes.
Take care, Hey, brother.
All right, bye-bye. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
So I was telling you that so you had Kawe, who was the brother of Tony, who then, after about 3-4 years, Tony said, I'm money a say, Tony got his
own truck.
Well, Kawe got another truck. So Kawe got a 3-ton truck. Kawe held his 3-ton and gave his little brother Tony to be from football. So he has graduated now
to driving.
To driving, and what you find happened was that Tony himself had his footboys.
Okay.
So he had a partner by the name of Chico. I think Chico name is Hazel Hamilton. I think that's the name of Chico name, Hazel Hamilton. And he also had another guy by the name of Francis Faswa. So Tony has graduated from
footboy
to now driver, and now he has to employ other people to be footboy. So can you imagine? So many of the footboys in those days found themselves to be chauffeurs. So Alex Roye himself, after he came from St. Croix, had 3-ton trucks. And he had Evans Cooley here and so on.
I remember that Evans.
Right. Evans was football.
I even thought he was a Carib.
Yeah, well, a lot of people thought he was a Carib.
Because he had that nice Cooley hair.
Right.
Fair-skinned guy.
Right. And Evans was the footboy for Alex.
But he ended up driving truck myself.
He ended up purchasing trucks.
Yeah, I remember
and having his own bus.
He had his own truck, he had his own bus. I remember him quite well.
Right. So in Vekas, I remember even as a boy, Peter himself, he's ringing the church bell. And I want anybody from Vekas to call and to help me with those things. Because it's important that we remember and we remember the Laku and its graduation.
Mm-hmm.
And we will say why the graduation in a while from the whole idea of the trucks. Because when the trucks were being purchased, they were being purchased with no box. Remember? They had to build the box.
Build the box. Mm-hmm.
They had to build the box to a particular size and balance so that when the passengers get on board, that they will all be safe.
Safe, yeah.
All right? Now, you remember when they built those boxes for the truck, that they would have this tarpaulin. Is it tarpaulin?
Yes, the tarpaulin on the side to pull it down.
To pull it down.
In case of rain.
Not just in case of rain. In the early mornings, because
it's cold.
It is so very cold that you have to put this thing down. And you have to try to watch through the
little groove. Because you can't see anything.
You can't see anything. Someone's on the telephone. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, brethren. Good. Not from Vikas. My dad was from Vikas.
Oh,
so,
cousin.
Right? Take those.
Cousin.
Yeah.
Your dad was a police, right?
I am a Rosobuki. So there's not much I can share about tailboard and whatever the footboy and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I can vividly remember about the trucks, because we had that repair garage of Karam by the Coxswain.
Yes.
And there was something historic about the trucks. And I think that was also the role of the footboy. Before, if they had any difficulty cranking up or starting the vehicle, or the truck rather, there was that crank at the front of the vehicle. They would whine, keep whining until it gets to a stop. And secondly, my parents used to organize something they call picnic.
Party with veer. No, you must call them party with veer, man. They're going on a picnic.
I don't know what. Yeah. So during that period, I can tell you and vividly remember that the police would have been on assignment tracking all the trucks going to different areas, especially in the north. That's where we used to travel. And on approaching the vehicle, they would indicate to you, pull on the side and check the driver, check to see how many footboys, because I think there was a requirement of only one footboy per truck.
One footboy.
So if there were two, from the time of the citation or the police, the second footboy would have to find himself sitting, make space and find himself sitting among the other passengers on the truck. So if you were drunk, the driver was drunk, well, obviously, it's something different. If the footboy was drunk, that is the same scenario. So I think the past reflected a little difference in terms of safety and caution regarding people using the road compared to today. So that's my take on footboy and whatever it is. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
But I heard you mention some fellas, and I didn't hear his name, but I know his father had a truck. In fact, he told me he even reported his father for having two footboys. And I think he drove the truck without license. Sogo Fly. Thomas.
Sogo Fly was a footboy?
No, his father had a truck.
Oh.
His father owned a truck in Vickers.
I can't recall.
Well, you can't remember, because me and him had that discussion on more than one occasion. So his father owned the truck. I do not know what was the tonnage of the truck, whether it was a 1-ton, 3-ton, or 5-ton truck. But I remember he told me his father had a truck, and he was from Vegas, Penville area.
Someone's on the telephone. Let's hear what this person has to say. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening. Good evening to you, caller.
Hello,
Good evening. Caller. You have to call us back.
Your line is bad.
Line is bad. No. The caller before called and spoke about the hand crank. Remember that?
Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
You have to be strong.
You have to be strong to crank.
No. Many a time for that to happen is when your battery is low, or when the truck is giving you a problem, your starter is giving you a problem.
You have to crank.
So you have to crank.
And that crank is below below, because remember,
it's on the you call it, not the fender. Is it the fender?
Yes.
Yes, it's in the middle of the fender.
Fender, right?
Yes, and you have to crank this.
Push
thing.
that inside.
Yeah. Let's. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening to you, caller. Sorry about that, caller. You have to call me back. Yes. So you have to do that. You have to crank.
And you have to be strong.
And you have to be very strong to do
energetic
that.
to get that.
And the worst thing to have is a truck giving you a problem. Good evening to you, caller.
Hey, Cecil, most of those trucks, we all know they come from the country. But who you know in Roseau that used to build the truck box, building truck box?
I know Don used to build, a fella called Don used to build truck box.
No, but I want Cecil to answer me. Cecil says, yeah, I want.
You're asking me that question?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because I know there is somebody I know you know, but I'm not sure if you can remember if he used to build his truck box and where.
Daniel?
Well, I know Small. You know Small?
Oh, Small on Fields Lane.
That's correct.
Always had his pencil in his ears.
Yes.
On his
that
ears.
Is correct.
Small.
He's the only man I know that used to build boxes in Rosewood. They have a son by the name of Franklin from Cox Street or Fields Lane. Yes. Right.
The truth is that
I know that Mr. Moses from Pishner, well, because he was a carpenter, he used to build his own truck box. So these only two persons I know that building truck box.
Well,
Moses Raphael from Pishner and Small in Rosewood.
Well, I know that the one who built truck boxes in the Pottersville area is Mr. Don. He was a first-class carpenter. So I know he built a box for Deans Bruni, who had a truck.
Oh, so that probably is way before me and the time.
Right. Yes. So I know him.
Yeah.
He was a master carpenter, but he drank a lot of rum. He rode a bicycle. I know him.
Take care of yourself. Good night.
Thank you. No, in Penville used to have a guy by the name of Dor Etienne. He had a Freeton. One of the days I saw him and I tell him, Dor, you remember me? He say, come on, and ask him who. He tell me, was that for Judith then? So I know he knows me well. And Dor used to have this young guy, Fio. Fio used to be a footboy for Dor in those early days. And Fio himself later on became a truck driver. Now he has his own bus. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
I just called to say that my husband and I own 2 one-ton trucks.
And
my husband and I already make a truck box.
Hold on, ma'am. Hold on, Malaron. Hold on. Ukadima, your husband and yourself build a truck
box
in Pottersville.
Definitely a one-ton truck box
in Pottersville.
In Pottersville, I was measuring and he was sawing and connecting everything else. Ask anybody in Pottersville. Like we were working on it all through the night under the lamppost.
So let me ask you a question. Let me ask you a question. Where that truck was going to?
Where it was going to?
Yes.
Layu Park.
Layu Park, yes.
I already drive the one-ton truck from my garden to the boxing plant full of bananas. That's in the early 80s.
Okay.
Okay.
And you remember we told
Ma Huxley, man. Oh.
Ma Huxley used to handle her truck is like a toy.
I know her. And you know where she lived? She lived on in front of the Public Works.
Definitely.
That's where I knew. I drove on her. I used to be on that truck and she driving and you'd swear it's a man driving.
You say it's a man.
And she'd bring the grapefruits and oranges to the parking plant.
Hold on, her husband was
That's right.
Her husband was a driver before?
Yes, the husband was Huxley Shillingford.
Huxley.
Daniel Shillingford's father.
He have a whole set of children.
Yeah. The wife was a fantastic driver.
Randy
on Cox Street. That's Huxley's son, you know. Just by
good news, man.
Yes, I rode on that lady's truck.
I've never seen a lady.
Oh man, you're joking. I tell you, it's a child.
A truck like a joke.
Like a joke, man. My Huxley.
Like a toy. You should drive it up to Carhome. The estate was at Carhome.
The estate is still there in Carhome.
That's right.
All right then, thanks for that info.
Okay, welcome.
I've never.
Well, your father used to load fruits on that truck for my Huxley, you know, when he worked at Parking Shed, so they would have to help to put it in the gas room.
I would like somebody to send a picture of that lady driving that truck.
Oh man, she was a master driver of trucks.
Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, Mr. Cecil.
Yes, good evening to you, sir.
How are you and your guest? That is.
Cucumber man.
That's a Granby caller.
That's a Granby man. Cucumber man. Good evening.
Yes, you know, it's on Bedford truck I learned to work mechanic. And you know, that time they are short little boys fixing Bedford truck for people, for fellas like Benoit Stewart from Granby, like Moses Raphael, my uncle, like Mervyn from Pottersville. I driving them short little truck, and truck they are short little boy and fella saying, but why them fellas giving that short little boy a big truck to drive like that? Because I was fixing them Bedford truck and I go in and try them. You know, once I go for Seja and fix one for a fella and I go in and try it, and I went up to Petit Savon and the brakes of that give way on me. When I press brakes in a corner, but I feel that go down, flat down. I just let go the brakes and I go back and press it on the brake hole. And that is the struggle that people had with them Bedford trucks, and they were very difficult to work on.
Right. Because what about the brakes, Kokom? Since you work on that, were they always reliable? Were they always capable of holding?
Bedford truck never had reliable brakes.
I just told Cecil that.
Bedford truck never had reliable brakes. Only now they improve on them brakes of those vehicles. You haven't got those systems used to have before. But those vehicles, they are never, just like some of them Land Rover today used to have, you know. Everything never had reliable brakes. And when you see, but you driving those smoothly and you see that give way on you, you know, there is a fella when I used to go and try his truck with him, he used to make me take my foot and he cranking by the gear of that thing there for the second gear not to slip. Their second gear and their third gear is to slip a lot. And when you see you go going uphill with that, and you see the second gear or first gear slip on you, my brother, and you do not know what to do. Trouble. But see that.
What about the handbrakes? So what about the handbrakes then?
That was too heavy,
Well,
man.
the handbrake cable always used to burst.
Burst on you, man.
Burst on you. Once I was on that bed for truck working for someone, and we put on the handbrakes, and we did not put stone. All of a sudden, that going down on me. The fella had to go back and take a stone and put that quick and pull me out from the truck. The truck do pass over me. So those trucks there, my brother, and see that from the time they came in from England, is that we had to use because we had donkeys, we had all those other things, and we do with them, and we had Bedford truck, but they were trouble. They serve a lot of people. They fix road in Dominica, just like them Land Rover. I heard is Land Rover and Bedford truck that missed all the interior to go down in Marigot and those areas, you know. So talking about Bedford truck, I know about them. I work on them. Little boy raising up as a mechanic. I learned to fix their gearbox. I used to fix them with too low. I used to fix them with all them big Bedford truck fellas. And fellas saying, boy, where that little boy come out now? A little boy like that, a short little boy, lifting up a gearbox of a Bedford truck and fix that and put that back inside. And I used to get a lot of job of that from them because of my reputation. I used to fix them for them fellas. Still good night to you and your partner.
Yeah, good night.
Yeah. Mr.
Brain.
Yeah, Brain.
Yep.
Boy, we have to talk.
Oh, we have news. We have to meet in conference. We have to talk. Me and you.
My prediction go through.
Man, you prayed well, but we will talk. That's for us to
Tonight, not for that.
We'll meet in chambers, boy, tomorrow.
All right. Thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, I was telling you, Cecil, the reason why I said so in terms of the bricks, that's exactly what happened in the Mount Prosper disaster. When the guy was driving, coming down the hill for that crusade in the Windsor Park, and when he shifted gears and pressed, no brakes. A similar thing happened, my mother told me, well, I don't know how authentic that story was, in terms of a disaster that happened in the same Vegas area, where people were going on party with you, on picnic, up the hill, going down the hill in Vegas, the bricks gave way. So the bricks was one of the weaknesses of those Bedford trucks.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. You're live. Good evening to you, caller. Okay, you call have to call me back. Good evening to you, caller. You're live. Good evening. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi. Mr. Brian.
I know you. I know.
Good night. What a party.
I know you've helped them trucks.
Party Riviera. Let me tell you.
You went on party Riviera?
Me? No, I don't know too young for that. I heard about Party Riviera. But I see, when Pink said about my Huxley, I remember that lady, oh boy, she used to drive manish, man. And a grapefruit and everything packing shed, man. That lady, man, she was something else. But when Mrs. Lawrence said she was in her truck, I'm doing nothing. Yes, she was. Yeah. I remember playing tongue boy, you know, with her husband going Layu Park. Let me tell you now, where that word Mr. Adams came from footboy.
Well, I don't know actually where that word come from, but that's what I knew. They called the guys who stood at it on top of the tailboard footboy.
Footboy.
So I don't know.
They used to say, well, I know, well, conductor is an English word.
Well, but footboy.
Yeah.
Because the Gobo Gojo and the Grand Madame Roso would say, "Gade, me say you footboy, man." They are so sassy because that was the work of a boy who, you know, that they felt was a low of the low.
Okay.
So they call you footboy.
Footboy.
Or maybe because he's been standing
because
all
I'm
night.
saying where that
All
word
night.
came from, I'm thinking where I've heard it so many times growing up, Et puis, et puis, vieux football.
Missy, femme ça aller à maille avec un homme football. Un football bitation, oui.
Vieux football, ramasser un vieux football.
Mané à Kaibwe. Pas là. Oh, you remember that?
Pas mener vieux football.
Devant la porte, moi, ou foufou.
Anyway, I'm listening.
Yes, take care.
Okay.
Thank you.
But and that was interesting culturally because people look down on the football. If you're a woman,
Not necessarily,
well, in Roseau, I don't know
Roseau.
about the country.
As I was about to say to you, because the football played an integral role in the social life or lives of many people. How? The football actually knew where everybody on the truck was living. So the football would be the one responsible. Remember, there was a bell that you press and it press ping. So whenever the football presses that bell, it would indicate to the driver
That he must stop.
that he has to stop there. All right? So many a times the football would know who the dash in the bagger
Belongs to.
the fig who it belongs to, the fridge who it belongs to. So the football himself played an integral role in the development of...
But not in Roseau. The football was looked down upon in Roseau.
Hold on, let's take a caller. Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening. Cadet, on football. Cadet.
Or cadet.
Oh, yes, it's a cadet.
The cadet. Cadet.
Cadet.
Me lay with Roseau. C'est famous was because these boys would like to make their chase behind the girls in Roseau. But the girls in Roseau knew that these
You
children...
still there, caller?
You still there? Yeah. In the country, they may have had a social status. But in Roseau...
Because what would have happened the day before or days before, the people in the country area would tell Tony as the football, Tony, Dikawe, stop bomb because I have a bag of food to bring for my country.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
my children.
So he would know actually where all the items were because that was his role and function to know where the bag of dashing going to or where the fridge has to go to. He knew.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Cecil,
Yes.
I called to tell you if you can remember that man we call Rufus Walter.
Rufus
Walter, this is.
Rufus Walter. That
Yes,
name.
Alco.
No, that name not staying with me.
He had married to Charlie Money.
No, that one for sure not staying with me. Not staying.
Well, let me tell you something. He had a big truck, a big Fortune truck. Only for it's been black, but the box is not paint. So sometimes we were playing cricket on the 7 and Opak. So when we had a big truck coming, we say we're going to take a to ride. So when it's like coming, we'll hop down. But I will tell you all the other
Carmen?
all the other fellas hop down. And when I try to hop, when I let go because I don't want to go see what people was making vehicles people. Go down there. So when I hop down, the current of the truck just pulled me all the way down. All my 10 toes, push and squeeze on my belly. And they have to bring me.
So hold on, you batch the truck from Opak. You batch the truck from Opak, and you go up the hill by Carmen.
Yeah, we go all the way. We got the 2 L's going up, pass by Magli going up there. So when we reach by Carmen, that lady Carmen,
He tried to hop off.
Outside. Then all them other fellas on hop, but I couldn't on hop because why? So much speed. But when I make up my mind to on hop, the truck pulled me all the way to my guy there, and I push all my things. I chop all my clothes, my chop. Then the fellas have to bring me in the back.
You have to come back down, Opak.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Very dangerous.
Yes. All right then. Thanks. You know, and just as we're going along, as we're talking about, I can talk about my area. In Penville too, there was this guy, Rudolph Anatol. He too had a free-ton truck in those days, Rudolph Anatol. And he was a very popular driver in the area. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Jerome Baron, he was a footboy before he started driving, and after he make a lot of money. Jerome Baron.
Where that is?
He was a cadet. cadet on a truck. That's what he was before he started driving.
In
and then afterwards, he
Savan?
was a man with plenty money.
Where you was from, Petit Savan?
Jerome's mother was from Laron, and his father was from Petit. You understand?
Yes.
Yeah, it was Laron. But anyway, Jerome came to La Plaine.
Oh, that's you're talking the red man and he have his truck, his 3-ton truck, and park it in Lago.
Lago, right?
That red man.
A red skin Jerome,
yes. Yes.
And Terry McAllen also had a truck too, and Hartford Bertrand. Yeah, they all had trucks at La Plaine.
Wow, I'm happy that you were able to call for La Plaine because I wanted to hear about La Plaine. I remember that gentleman with his 3-ton, and yes, as you're saying that, I remember that he was a foot boy.
Yes,
and as you're saying that, I'm also seeing the white and blue tennis that he used to wear from Bata. And that khaki pants.
Yeah, a short pants. Have a good evening.
Well, I remember this gentleman. And then later on, he became an owner of a truck.
What the footboy had, what would they put in the foot?
Boy, I know Toyota and those kind of things. You know.
Toyota and tennis. Tennis boots.
Let's take this caller. Good evening to you, caller.
Cecil, that's your boy Guada.
Yes, Guada.
Bread.
Liba Katuavai.
Hi, dear listening.
Good man.
Not to forget, at that time also, Cecil, the police will stop the truck on them if they haven't got a foot boy. That was a must to have a foot boy at the back of the truck. Because if the police stop you and you haven't got a foot boy, you will get a ticket. So, but yes. Anyway, one love, your boy listening.
All right,
thank you. All right, let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Hello.
Yes, good evening.
Good evening, caller.
Cecil. Mr. Adams.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I have a bad line. I'll call back.
Okay, all right. Yeah. All right.
Well, these fellas, this football.
Can you imagine these guys were important? And I like that point that the police would stop the truck to find out if they have a football.
But you had to.
And if you don't have a football or cadet, they give you a ticket.
Right, because
the guys are important.
Right, because if you have these items and there's nobody at the back to look out for these items, they can fall off the truck.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi, Adams.
Yes, good evening.
Yes, me again. Let me tell you, and Cecil, don't say they were. Maybe in your village they were recognized, but Mr. Adams, you know, in Roseau we cannot love football.
No, your mother put those in your.
I don't. There's nowhere saying about they were that and that.
Well, in your community.
In the country, but not Roseau.
No, because I just told him.
You cannot bring a football in front of your mother door. Qui vient ça?
Hola, monsieur Sorti.
Hola, monsieur Sorti. Qui tennis in You know, you cannot compare Roseau with the country.
I know.
They will recognize, yes, they ring bell. They know where this fridge going and that.
Mais pas Roseau.
Pas Roseau. Pas Benedict.
Oh, Latinx Sorti.
Et puis, vieux tennis. You know, even though the man have plenty money, you know that you know that they will recognize. Only now we know, they will recognize they built to her. But at the time growing up, Upala football.
All I can tell you, Vado, all I can tell you, when those guys, for instance, in the country area, whenever your food has to go down, those is not telephone. So we have to go and look. We have to go and look for Tony. The truck driver is a big man. So you have to go and look for Tony, or you have to go and look for Evans, or you have to go and look for Theo.
I'm not telling you no. Well, because
they were
recognized in the villages. But you know about Rosona. So I will bring a football in front of Lawrence.
Lawrence take everything for us.
But But it's strange because Lawrence would have seen all of the footboys because he was living right where the footboys are.
That's what I'm saying.
They would come by him and fix their shoe.
Right, so that's why
Lawrence,
because he can give you football.
Lawrence, we said to tell Lawrence, we fixing by the riverside there, Lawrence, Lauro.
So we grew up now knowing all the football.
Yes.
For me to go and get a football for Lawrence.
Football couldn't make a break by Vado Pala.
That one make me laugh.
Good evening, Vado. You bring a football by Lawrence. Mr. So full of himself.
Boy.
And full with good English. Lawrence.
Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Hey, Cecil,
yes.
You remember a man by the name of Joff, a wrestling man from Wesley on Marigot?
Yes,
Wesley.
Joff.
Yeah,
I remember him.
Right.
Yes.
He used to have a nice green, as I seen, a metallic green
Yes.
truck.
Yes.
Very clean truck.
Very clean truck.
Very clean. And then Fufu is a man.
I was about to talk about Fufu.
And Fufu brother is Jerome in
Collier.
Collier, Jerome, yes.
One St. Joseph, one Collier.
While Fufu used to have a one ton.
One ton truck.
Always used to be well presentable. Yeah, I remember he used to carry people from Roseau to Mahu.
Or St. Joe sometimes, yeah.
Yeah, but there is a man from Layu. I just forget his name. Yeah, he must have passed now. He used to have a 1 ton truck. Same thing like Fufu.
I think it was Paul.
I think it's the father of Doreen Paul.
Mr. Paul.
That is correct.
Doreen Paul's father, yeah.
Mr. Paul, shotman. Doreen Paul's father.
And he hold his truck until the end.
He hold his truck.
It was a blue truck.
It was a blue truck.
A very good truck.
Yeah. Yeah, all right. I think someone sent me a picture of that truck, of Doreen Paul. And I don't know if it's Doreen Paul. I was in a school uniform, I think. What do you call that school? Miss the non-school.
Yeah, Doreen Paul.
Yeah, I don't know if it's Doreen Paul.
Yeah, Doreen Paul.
Yeah.
Because the father had a lovely and he kept it until the end.
Yes, until the end.
He kept that truck.
Fufu and Mr. Paul, I think, were the guys who kept
their truck.
The 1 ton truck for a long while.
Very long time.
Fufu had a Vari.
Oh man, very stylish.
Fufu had
Did he ever buy a bus, that Fufu?
I don't think Fufu ever had a bus.
I think he kept his truck.
I don't think I ever saw Fufu for
a truck.
A truck.
A bus.
Make sure that Fufu used to have a way. His two buttons, the two top buttons, is to be open.
Open, man. Full of
And one part of his shirt is in his pants and the other on his buttocks.
Oh, and the girls love this.
The girls love Fufu.
They love Fufu.
Good evening.
Good evening, Manchester. Where's that name? I guess you know that voice.
Stephen.
Steve, man.
Steve.
Oh, Steve, man. Oh, Triumph. The great Triumph.
You remember Prince Oni had a truck, Boston.
Oh, yeah, Friton.
Prince Oni, yes, Friton.
And that man make nice money, from the jetty.
And Spider.
This truck was well taken care of.
Yes.
And you remember a fella from Vickers they call Abbott?
Yes,
Abbott had a truck
Abbott.
Too, you know that.
Yes, Mr. Abbott.
Abbott died, he was Pastor's brother.
Yes.
That's my first cousin.
Yes.
And then you have you had an old man, they call Mr. and Mrs. Milo. They had a show, and he was the best dancer, the cordial dancer in Vickers.
You're talking about Milo Seaman, Guyton Seaman's father.
Of course.
Guyton Seaman's father.
Guyton father and Eugenia and all of them.
Right, so that's he's my mother's cousin.
Well, they used to live at home, you know.
Yes.
You don't know that?
Yes, I know that. On the corner of Great Barbaro Street and Upper Lane.
No, it was in Bath Road. And Cock Street.
Bath Road and Cock Street, yes.
Right, yeah, where we used to live there.
I remember you used to live.
Exactly. Those were the days, man.
Those were the days. I
guess I had to call my brain, man. I'm Cecil.
Oh, man.
I'm Cecil, where you used to live. Very close to us in Bills.
I live on 49A, you live on 49B.
Exactly.
Oh, you're close, man. Well, the Triumph, you have history, man.
What are you talking about now? I just older than Cecil.
but very interestingly, I don't see it anymore. Why is he talking about passenger trucks, Cecil? You know that there was a prison truck?
Yes,
But of course,
yes, I know
The
the prison truck.
prison
Yeah, I remember the prison truck. I remember the prison truck for sure. I remember the prison truck.
And you had to be dressed all in blue.
Yeah, blue.
You feel
Yeah.
blue short pants.
Yeah.
So people
Oh, you're
say
talking about the jailbirds.
jailbirds.
Yeah.
You had your truck,
Yeah.
but they also had their footboy.
Yeah.
Because you had to have your football. Those days, fellas in jail in Boston driving, you know.
But when Carrie and them diverted and went to boss, them man drove all their life for money, you know. Even Tony have a boss now.
Okay.
Evans had an Indian here, you know.
Yeah,
I don't think he was from Brazil, but he was a kind of indigenous person.
Yes. I remember him.
Yes. Evans living close to the police station in
That's right.
Portsmouth. Exactly. My mom was from Portsmouth, you know. Born them places there, you know. And I had all my family.
So you would have known that Mr. Stephen Savrin was also a owner of a Freeton truck.
A Freeton truck,
Yeah.
man.
He wasn't coming to Rose, he was driving between Clifton and Portsmouth. That's the father of the president, I think.
Yes.
The father of the president. Yes.
He had a truck?
Yes, the father of the president. He was driving between Clifton and Portsmouth and Clifton.
Well, you mean that's all of them man joined and came. One became a fireman, the brother was a fireman.
Yes.
For a very long time.
Separate.
Yeah.
Of course. Take care of yourself.
Thank you,
man, officer.
Yeah. you know, and that culture of ours, it was not just for Dominica. It must have been in other parts of the Caribbean.
Well, with the Caribbean, that was their modality of transportation at the time, Cecil.
Good evening to you, caller.
Just to inform you from a historical point of view, the Norway Road, Oxley Slingford was the supervisor on that road. And when war broke out, my mother was working on the road. I was with her as a young man. The people said that they are not working. Oxley Slingford told the workers, if you all are not working because war broke out, you will have to walk from Bells to Roseau. I was 9 years old, and we walked from Bells to Roseau. And he's the one that built the Norway Road, Oxley Slingford.
All right. Thanks, man.
Thank you.
Someone just sent me a message and said that Fufu had a boss. The person said that the boss was light blue, and it was a Toyota bus. So someone just said up to 2004 that the bus was actually being driven by Fufu.
Okay, I never saw him drive that bus.
So that's good information.
That's good
for us,
information.
you know? That's the graduation we are talking about.
Yeah, movement from
that is the graduation
from
we're
the
talking
truck.
about. So you find that in all of the communities, you know, you heard from Portsmouth, you know, the people that actually had the trucks in Portsmouth. But I have not heard
from Marigot.
I heard someone call from Wesley.
Oh, Marigot had bus.
Good evening to you, caller.
You know, Fufu is Wallet's father.
Very much so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me tell you, Fufu Hiram is Hiram. That's for call you. It's Fufu up by the bridge, Fufu for Maho, Hiram for call you, Jubla, Monwachet. Okay? Right. Let me tell you, when with those truck drivers at that time, nice wife to get, especially the one Doreen Paul mother and father. Doreen Paul mother was a nice redskin nurse, you know.
Oh yes.
Right, and let me tell you, she was not too thing to drive her to work on the truck, you know. She had the front of the truck. I remember that.
I saw her.
A girl, just like Fufu wife, a nice, jolly lady, nice wives, and the guy, thing. I don't, a trucker, I know his last name. He's for St. Joseph. I cannot remember. My sister has a child with him, but I don't remember his first name, you know. Pattison Truckard for St. Joseph. He was driving trucks and Joseph. So the nice girls they were getting. prom nights, those truck drivers. But I don't remember clearly about Fufu and a bus. Though. I don't remember.
I don't remember it myself.
Well, someone just sent me a message and said that Fufu had a bus, a Toyota bus.
Okay, maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe,
up to 2004.
What I'm saying, why I know about Mao, my mother is from Mao.
Okay.
So we went down to Mao very often. And to me, it's the truck. And my grandmother, one of them had a joke about my grandmother, you know. And so my grandmother always had things carrying on the truck, you know. And I remember that clearly. But I don't remember the bus.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, caller.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
But you see, you talk about the footboys, but the bus, the truck drivers, they made money, and so the girls fell for them.
Like today.
And so they had the money. They had their chain in their neck, their collars were up, they had their bell bottom. And the girls just fell in love. The Roseau girls love the truck drivers. And
I'm not so sure if it's the Roseau girls, you know. The girls who came from the rural areas who lived in Roseau stayed around with their own.
Well, with their own. Well, the truck drivers were getting some of the promise of the girls, you know.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Cecil. Cecil, I know a lot of guys that used to have truck by day. As you know, that's where I born, bred and raised in Tongue and by the Bay. That's why I don't take much school. You had a man like Ralph Regis from Eggleston. He used to drive a truck for Smithy. And you had a man like Owen, used to have his own truck. All those they were Freeton trucks. And Daniel George from Eggleston used to have a truck. And Scotty, and you know man like Scotty by the bridge.
Oh yes, Scotty. How could we forget Scotty?
Right. And then
Scotty used to have 5 ton, not a 3 ton, 5 ton.
Well, he had a 3 ton at first, and then he ended up moving to the 5 ton. Right. Then you have man like Samuel. You know Sambo, his son Mano that gets shot in 1970.
Oh yes, he used to have a 1 ton.
He used to have a 1 ton.
He used to have a 1 ton.
His name is Samuel Emma.
Yes. Samuel Emma.
Yes. He lived on Hillsborough Street.
That's correct.
Exactly. So I say if all those guys, so I know them. These guys used to have their trucks. And do you know a man like Mr. Didier? I think Brain's supposed to know him from Potter's.
Didier, who lived in Libla Lane, number 1 Libla Lane.
Oh, Mr. He was a Seventh Adventist.
Mr. Didier Lawrence.
Didier Lawrence. Yes, Didier Lawrence.
Right, he used to have a truck, so he used to come by the day and work also too. So at the time going in my mind coming back.
Right,
Didier had a 3 ton truck.
He had a 3 ton truck, and he was my neighbor, my mother's neighbor, because she has a house on Freely Lane. So I know Mr. Didier.
Yeah, and I know Didier very well.
He was a 7 Days Adventist.
Yeah, we went to church together.
That's right.
Actually, we used to use him to go about when we had our crusade.
I know.
So he was the one taking people from Roseau to bring them wherever, or wherever.
Good.
Yes.
Then you had man like Hartford Boston.
Hartford
Spider.
From St. Joseph.
You had man like Peter Boston.
Peter Boston in Lagon. Still has his truck. Yeah, 3 ton.
From Grand Fond, wherever the kids live.
Yes.
They used to carry the Grand for people. They used to do the same thing, carry them people and weekend come and during the week come by the day and see what they do. Take care of yourself, brother.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would have liked to know some of the other drivers, truck drivers.
But I know Marigot had quite a number of them, and these guys were more or less fellas who got all the promised girls too as well. But there were a number of bus drivers from Marigot, truck drivers.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Ben, do you know Mr. Densbourne? He was from La Plaine.
Yes, he was from La Plaine. He was my neighbor.
Okay, and let me tell you, when you've been driven on the truck, like you feel like the trees are moving, you know, when you're on the truck.
Yes. You know, when you first come into Roseau, right? When you first come into Roseau and you're on top that truck or you're on board that truck as a passenger, whether you are in the side of the truck, in the window side, or whether you're in the middle. If you're in the middle, you're watching the glass. All right? And you are seeing the trees moving. And as a little boy, you're saying the tree moving faster than the truck way.
Very well. And when you see the, but I think his thing that is on the truck, I think it's a leather rack, something like that.
Yes, leather rack.
leather
Yes.
rack.
Right, to roll it up, and then when it's raining, they would put it down.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or when it's too cold, they put it down, and later on about 5 o'clock, they put it back up.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to reach in Roseau early morning.
6 o'clock, 6:40, you know, so.
No, boy, before that.
What? you from where?
And that's Rufan calling Cecil Rufan from La Place.
And you know what? And you know what would happen? My brother would tell me, boy,
no, hold on. Rufan, you know why you used to reach Roseau early? You remember when they said Shime weave over? The roads are better than those in the northeast and the north. So coming to Roseau was a real task. Bad pothole, bad roads, all about.
We used to come very early, when you come Roseau. No, everywhere close.
So which means Rufan, you did not pass Florida.
No, I did not pass through Loader, but I can remember as a young child I was coming to talk on truck.
Okay.
Okay.
So you come to tongue in the 70s?
Yeah,
All right, okay.
All right, then.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, bye-bye.
But the Lola experience, my parents told me, was that when the people from Grand Fond and Rosalie passed through the lake, they would pick them up when trucks first started operating in Roseau in Loda.
Right, in Loda.
So the trucks went up to Loda to meet them and brought them down to Roseau.
So they passed Shimelita.
They passed through Shimelita.
And get into Loda.
And then the trucks would take them to...
Truck would take them from Loda and
into
bring them to
Roseau. Mm-hmm.
Right, let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, Mr. Joseph.
Hey, good evening, caller.
Rossi had a 1 ton.
Who?
Flossie Joseph.
Luis Rossi had a 1.
Luis Rossi in Gotha? Luis Rossi, the taxi man? Caller, I'm asking if it's Luis Rossi, the taxi man.
Take your time. It had 2 Rossis that were taxi man. It had Baby Rossi and it had Luis Rossi.
So you said Luis...
I'm talking about
Luis Rossi. So I'm asking if it's that one, the taxi man, that had the 1 ton.
Yes, he used to drive for units, but the other brother had his own taxi. And he used to go Grand Fond.
Okay.
I remember I used to drive that truck in the 70s, the early 70s.
Packer used to be a driver now?
You used to be a driver now, Packer?
You listening to me or you not
I asked you a question. I never know.
Wait, listen to me.
Yes, I'm listening.
In 1970, I came down here on vacation. The owner of the truck was holding for Audley, and I had to drive the truck to Grand Fond with a load of passengers. When we reached under the cliff, a police come out under the bush. a corporal. His name is Alfred. He lives in Kenfield. No. Kenfield by Nestle area.
Oh, okay.
Oh, Alfred, the Redskin one.
The one that used to be playing. Alfred from that plane.
Yeah.
Alfred the 70s.
Wait. 2 minutes after, Sergeant fly out under the bush. Desmond Blanchard. He was a sergeant. Right. They came, they stopped the truck, I stopped. They look all around, they make me blow horn, they want tire, they do everything. Then Mr. Blanchard tells me, Mr. Parker, you have a problem. I tell him, I do see the problem. Explain the problem to me. He tell me I have 2 passengers I overload. I have to put them down. Listen, I have to put them down or you're going to charge me. I tell him, when you put them down under the cliff, where are they going to sleep? He tell me, well, okay, we want us to charge you, so we're going to charge you. So they charge me. But I was only here for 2 weeks vacation. By the time they do all they do, I was no longer here. I go back away.
The charge is still there, you know. The charge is still there in the Packer. Ashton Packer, this charge is still there, you know.
No, but he no longer police.
No, well, if it's still there, bring it. I couldn't leave the people to sleep under the cliff.
And I agree with you, man. You have to bring your people.
$100 I have to pay for those people.
How much?
I say, if it's that, you that tell me the charge. Just I say, remember that was in 70. So it couldn't be
or he
plenty
can take the
money.
charge, man.
It couldn't be plenty money in those days.
Or he can
Well,
take
I
the
think
charge.
I agree with Brain. I agree with Brain. David, take it.
Take it, man. If David don't take it, Mario take it, man.
Anyway,
You say.
take it easy, man.
All right, thank you.
Take
Yes, yeah. No, those drivers. For instance, in Vegas, Alex Roy was the prominent driver. That's the guy I think most persons would have loved driving on board. You know, his vehicle, his truck was always very clean, painted in blue, always well spray up and clean, and it was when you get onto Alex's truck, you know, you feel like you were in a big man vehicle.
Of course.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
Good evening.
Hello, Cecile.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, Loda had trucks as well.
Who had trucks in Loda?
Antoine John Baptiste,
Yeah.
deceased. You had Michael David, he's still alive, and Macklin John is deceased.
McLean, yes. When I was principal in
John
Loda, McLean had his truck.
In Loda?
Yeah, he had a
Okay,
truck.
good night.
Thank you. Yeah. So the person told me that in reference to Fufu, just to confirm that every morning at 5:30 he was working at a particular place and he had to take Fufu to transport him to the area in Warner.
Okay.
So yes, he said that Fufu had a truck up to 2000 bus up to 2004.
Okay.
You know. So I was saying about Alex. Alex's truck, you know, was always extraordinary. If you ask me in my days of growing up, in the whole of Dominica, Alex Roy had the best truck, or best free-ton trucks.
Best in terms of the condition.
The condition, the type of things that he would have done in the truck. I remember on the side of the truck, you used to have a door. You used to have your sponge to sit on, and it was really a real cute truck, if I can say.
Did this truck, Cecil, and I need to ask you that question, did it have any radios, any set?
Yeah, I was about to say that as I was giving the description. Alex's truck used to have a system where...
A tape deck or what?
Tape deck? Boy, I don't know what kind of deck or what kind of... You know those days they used to have the radio that you have to press.
Oh, yes, punch.
You know, punch. So it was AM those days, you know?
All right.
So, yes, it had a music system in it, and Alex's truck was just extraordinary. It was really extraordinary. I mean, the style of building his box and the way that his truck was being treated and kept, it was really, for me, up to
standard. Top standard.
Yes.
But you know what I like? Watching these trucks move on Christmas Eve. Man, that was spectacular.
Oh my God. They get into town, all right, for a certain time. They make 2 trips.
That's right.
They make 2 trips. So they make 1 trip at 1 o'clock. They get back to town and they make the other trip at 8 o'clock.
Man, and when they're moving at 8 o'clock, I can tell you, the commodities on top that.
Yes.
Was something else.
Fridge, stove,
bed,
carpet, bed, just
settee,
name it.
Everything.
Just name it.
Heading to the country.
Going down to the country.
I used to enjoy staying in Pottersville, just monitoring them.
And if you get you used to enjoy going to Pottersville, but just imagine that you have to go to the country, right? And you have to get onto right now is the promenade.
Yes.
The promenade. That's where you have to get to
your truck.
Get your truck. And they're still there today.
The
terminal is still there today. And when you get there, you have to make sure you get there early. Again, the footboy, you have to tell the footboy, I coming down today. And you have to tell him what time you're coming down.
So he preparation.
No, most times on a Friday, all right, on a Friday, many people would have to go down on a Friday, especially the people who will finish with school and so on. They have to go down on a Friday. So most times on a Friday, the truck has to leave at 1, but it never leaves 1 sharp. But Saturday, the public officers and so on who were from the country would find themselves onto the terminal.
Prominent, yeah.
And to really get onto the trucks. And mark you, the free turn would maybe take about 32 the one ton would take about between 14 and 16 passengers, and you have to make sure, because Vickers has 2 trucks in the early days, 2 trucks, one carway, one Alex footboy is Evans, carway footboy is Tony, and the competition was tight. You know what I'm saying? And many a times, because Alex's truck was bigger, and as I was saying to you, was kept properly, you find that many people would like to go on the bus or the truck of Evans, and also too, not Evans, of Alex, but also too, Alex had a different demeanor. Alex was looking more friendly than that of Kawi. Kawi was a no-nonsense man. Ou about truck moi cisé, manger dehors avec venir sur truck moi.
Mon pa we pour quitter.
Mon pa we pour quitter, mon dit c'est yone mo ka quitter.
Mo ka quitter.
Mo ka quitter a yone. So Alex and, well, not much Tony, because Tony was the football. Tony had to ensure that you come on time. But Kawi was and his name Kawi. His name was Oliver. But Kawi wasn't easy. He was a tough guy. But that doesn't say that he wasn't kind in his ways.
Okay.
He still had a very kind way where he would actually drop you where you were living. So you would find, I remembered traveling with Kawi, and Kawi would bring me and drop me in 39th A Fields Lane.
You bring me where you're living.
Bring me where I live in. Alex also did that. But I think when Alex did that, I suspect that you had to pay him an extra 25 cents. I think so.
What was
His memory serves me
I
right.
was about to ask you, what was the fare from Russo to Vickers at the time?
But not me paying, my mother paying.
Do you know how much she paid?
I can remember that.
All right.
I honestly, I can remember that. That I will never ever know, because right. I don't think I ever paid.
I think I paid. My father paid about 25 cents to get me from Russo to Layo.
Because you see, what was happening was, in those days, your parents had to take you to the terminal. So my mother, with my brown massive grip they used to call it, right?
Yes.
Remember the grip?
Yeah, your grip.
Your
brown grip, yeah.
Right.
With your clothes in it.
So my mother used to bring me to the bus terminal and would put me on the bus not the bus, but the truck that is available, so that I could get down, and she would make the payment. So, about payment,
okay. How did you get onto the truck? How did you get into the truck? Because right now,
from the front.
Did you climb from the back? The footboy would
No, you cannot do that, my brother. Footboy no.
Or you got on the side of the driver?
No, there was a door on the side, and if you had to get to the back, you would pass in the door on the side. That's a little door, just about 1 foot.
How many
wide.
doors you had?
One in that time, one door. I remember, and then you had an entrance at the front. All right, so the big trucks used to have about 6 seats, the small ones having about 4, and you jabbe in,
you're moving over.
You're moving over to where
you're jumping. Where you're going to.
That's if you happen to come early. If you happen to reach late, you'll squeeze. So many times as boys, we want to get early so that we can get the window
to see.
But if you're a little boy, and which happened to me several times, say mon Vickers là, you copain raison. So they'll tell you, you're a little boy, come on there. I have to sit here, not you. Come and sit in the middle. So most times, the mon Vickers
would put you in the middle.
Put you in the middle as a boy, and the adults would be
by the window side.
By the window side, and you have to close your leg and sit until you reach Vickers.
But the window we must describe it as is not actually is the tarpaulin you lift up and you can look out. It was not a window like a bus.
We can say no. It's not a window like a bus. It's the window which of a separation of.
With your wood.
With wood.
Yeah.
A pillar. Maybe 2 by 6 or something like that.
Yeah.
That they would make for you to rest your hand. You know, and to watch out and to be relaxed and so on. I know that Alex Chuck used to have a backrest. I remember that too. Alex Chuck used to have a backrest. And I also remember that Alex Chuck, in terms of comfort, always had sponge, well covered with leatherettes. And so you were always well comfortable driving from Roseau or Roseau to Vickers. Also to on the side of the or sometimes to some windows that there would be like the buses would be today a seat that can
fold
open,
up.
that can fold.
Okay.
You know, and so that you can allow people to pass through and so.
All right.
So it was really fun. You know, getting onto these buses, and what are the things that when you get onto the buses will come to in a while, talking
on the truck.
Yes. Good evening to you, caller.
One more thing, Cecil. I spent about 2 years in Vickers, or a little more than 2 years. I used to come from 2 different ways. We use the truck to come to town, or we take a truck to drop us in Portsmouth, and we take the lunch in Portsmouth and come to town. You do what you have to do, and you get back on the lunch by 2 something to go back to Portsmouth and get a truck to bring us to Vickers.
Do you remember who drove that lunch?
I think Pembo's father was one of the fellows with the truck, on the bus. Pembo, you know Pembo?
Yeah, Pemberton, who worked at the city.
Right. I think his father was one of them. I don't know the other man. But
I think the other man was Daly.
Oh, okay. Well, could be.
Daly drove the lunch.
I spent a little time down there. And Mr. Zokro was there as a police at the time. So that's not too late. That's a hell of a long time ago. Yeah. Because I remember I met him exercising in the stadium in Kingsfield. And I tell him about Vickers. He tell me, young man, that's a hell of a long time ago. Okay.
Okay, man.
Thank you. No, you know, when you get into these trucks, boy, that is where you get in Beth. You get in all types of conversation. I mean, it was amazing, you know, as a boy, little boy, growing up. Long time, no niggas like Beth, you know. Long.
Well, you have to travel a long distance, so all kind of people business being spoken about.
All time. And sometimes, you know, like if you go into from Roseau to Vickers, and it happened that Alex would have taken someone from Roseau and dropped them in Tibo. The Vickers people can't wait when that Tibo person go down to start jailing their name, you know, talking about them, you know. I mean, it was amazing, you know.
But you know, they still have some of the cultural differences between villages.
Yes.
Like Tibo. Well, I know, for instance, Vickers look as though they're more elite.
Let's put it that way. There was Tibo, there's Vickers, and there is Penville.
Right, but Tibo, Vickers.
In the early days, I mean, it's not existing like,
but
like
Vickers
was always the elite.
They feel that they are more superior.
And why Vickers felt that they were the elite?
The elite.
If you remember in the good old days, color or complexion played a great role.
Yeah, social stratification.
So you find the people of Vickers,
highly colored.
They had cool YII.
Yes.
So today my mom says to me, Cecil, let me warn you. I am not from Penville. I'm from Penville. I born in Vickers. My father had his house in Amba. He took his house in Amba and bring it in Lahore. So I want to remind you, living in Penville
doesn't make
me from Penville.
She still claim her Vickers roots.
She still claim her Vickers
because of the social status.
No, not because of the social status. I think she just wanted to remind me.
Well,
but she was also cool. YII.
Well, she had the complexion.
So she had the complexion. So you find now the people from Penville and the people from Tibu were darker in complexion.
They are.
You know, but strange but true. You find that a lot of guys who came out away from vehicles would find themselves loving the Kulewai ladies. So you find a lot of guys from Woodford Hill. Woodford Hill, say Latin is dear guys with collar, black collar, came from Woodford Hill.
Woodford Hill, yes.
And so you find a lot of guys from Woodford Hill who would have found themselves a wife in Vickers. So you'll find the surname Honorary is really a Woodford Hill surname.
Yeah, Honorary, yeah.
It's really a Woodford Hill surname. So my auntie had a Kule YII.
But she had a black man.
But she made all her children, something like 12 or so, with a black man. My mother, Kule YII, mais il faisait ça avec nom nègre.
Okay.
You know, so you find that a lot of the times though, that if all of the complexion that they spoke about,
they still ended
up.
Very interesting.
You know?
Social, yeah.
So you find that the girls, the ladies, however you want to describe them, or women, let's use the word women, from Vickers, when they came to town, that they were able to get husbands easily
because of the complexion.
So when you look around Roseau, a lot of men. Paul Green, wife is from Vickers. Yes. R.A. Frampton, wife is from Vickers. Actually, she's from Tobino. You know, so you have a lot of the so-called elites of the city
going around to pick up those
to pick the high complexion
from Vickers.
And it's strange that he only had to break that. He only was the one who broke that.
I know.
From Vickers. You know. So the truck drivers themselves, if you look at
their wives,
Tony and Tony, Carway and Evans, they were not fair in complexion. Alex was a little bit fairer than most of them, you know. So you find that even the bus drivers, the truck drivers in those days had high complexion.
Right. But it's interesting that you make mention of the truck drivers. Because,
hold on a while. Let's take that caller. Good evening to you, caller.
You just mentioned something about queer YI. One of these days you must invite me on a radio. Let me explain white, brown, red, and yellow people. The Kule YI people has no melanin. A black man is a man that is black, that has a melanin. It's not your fault. You haven't read about it, but I have a lot of information about it. Mr. Brent, when you have time, come up to my library. I'll pass all that information to you. Kule YI people, they may have black genes genetically, but they are not black. A black man is a man like you, Cecil, that have the melanin. You can stay in the sun and get vitamin D. Where I cannot stay in the sun, they have to have suntan lotion. If not, they get ultraviolet cancer ray. Aye.
Thank you. Yeah, you're making a point.
No, I'm saying that it's very interesting to note that the truck drivers from different parts of Dominica, because of the fact that they drove vehicles and owned them, even if some of them didn't own their own vehicles, but they drove for people, had a certain esteem in the eyes of the ladies because they see them as men earning money.
For Vickers, I think most Vickers and Penville, the only person subject to correction that I knew that drove a truck that was not his own was Peter. But I know Kawe, the truck was Kawe own. I know Tony had his, not Tony, first I'm talking about Oliver Kawe. Mm-hmm. I know that Alex owned his own. I know that Doe owned his own. I know that Rudolph and Atenol owned his own. So there are a number of people in
Vickers that
had their own trucks, you know. But I can't recall the others, you know, driving for other people besides Peter. If anybody has more information, they can help me on that.
Well, some of the drivers, truck drivers, didn't own their own truck. They drove for people. Especially, I know, for instance, there was a guy I know. Well, he didn't drive passenger trucks in my north. Pelly drove for T.D. Shillingford. So some of the truck drivers, Oklo from Bagatelle, I knew he drove the truck for Mr. Francis, the column of the estate in Bagatelle. So some of the drivers actually drove for persons, who purchased the trucks and they drove for them.
Okay. So you had quite a number of guys. So we saw a number of footboys became
Drivers.
owners of their own trucks. So Evans was one, and in that Evans had to have a footboy, which we learned early on tonight, that you had to have a football else you'll be charged by the police.
Mm-hmm.
So Evans' footboy was Tikok from Vickers. Tikok, maybe wondering how comes I still remembering that.
But one of the callers made a very interesting point, Cecil. It's interesting to note that the police themselves took those things so seriously that one of the callers told us that Desmond Blanchard, who was then a sergeant of police, and another officer were hiding in the bush on the Cleanfield Cliff looking for drivers who did not have their footboys. That was very, very, very... staying under the cliff to see if the trucks were overloaded, because you had to carry a certain number of passengers, and if you exceeded the number... And this had to be written on
the side of the truck.
Yeah, you remember?
The tonnage of the truck.
The tonnage of the truck.
The net tonnage, the tarry.
Yes.
Tonnage.
The number of passengers.
The number of passengers.
Right.
And what else?
I can't remember, but I remember
about four things on
the side of the truck.
It was printed in black and written in white.
Right. So
I don't know if that was the rule.
That's the rule, so that they can spot it
from a distance.
From a distance.
Yes. So you have to do that at the side of the truck. Either you put it at the rear end or on the front
of the truck.
So that when the police comes, they can see exactly what your truck is written and so. And so those days were
very,
really
very
fun days.
Fun days, right?
They were really good days, and to see the kind of improvement that these men have done. They have had children. They have married. They built their home. As a matter of fact, today, Tony Roy, a footboy in the 60s into the 70s, then later in the mid 70s, was able to have his own truck. Has his own home in Bonn, has his own land. You know what I'm saying? Married with his children. So when people said, "Oh, many
football, many
Duval, Mr.
Lawrence, who come in
football
Duval la porte moi."
But see that many years later, see Fio,
yes.
Fio in Penville. Fio has his children, went to university. Fio has his home, he has his wife. You know what I'm saying? And living comfortable, starting as a footboy.
Yes.
Evans, may his soul rest in peace, started as a footboy. Evans had his shop, Evans had his this, Evans had his that. Graduated. You know what I'm saying? And then later on, Evans had his bus. From truck
to bus.
No, from footboy to drive truck of his own, then purchase his bus. That is Evans. Tony, from footboy, buying his truck to having his own bus. Theo, from having his having to be a footboy, having to have his own bus. But that time bus then came. You know what I'm saying? And see the lives that these guys are actually living today. They're still around, they're still around. Noel Evans is gone, but there's still a number of guys that I'm sure that if we are to look out for today, we will see the kind of graduation that they have made.
But I must say, taking it to another level, when you drove on this bus, on this truck, Cecil, man, it was almost like torture. Because this wood in front of you, and you don't have the space of movement.
Not enough leg room.
Yes. You just had to remain in a fixed position. Look at what they're driving now. The modernity of transportation now, where you can stay on a bus
and what was nice,
and relax.
What was nice about it? There was there was old roads, really old
and
roads.
bumping.
And I mean, bumping on a free-ton truck with a kind of spring.
The spring, you can feel it.
And yet still these guys didn't ask for, how you call this? They didn't ask for government to give them more money. They didn't ask government to fix road for them. They didn't ask government to do anything for them.
Yeah.
But they stayed focused.
Because they relied on, the community depended on them.
Right.
So,
right.
And it was not unusual for the spring to break.
Mm-hmm.
Because on those roads, let's say you have about 4 springs under the truck, sometimes these things give away. It's not like what you have now with the buses, no spring.
Mm-hmm.
It's just shocks.
And I'm saying what I just said earlier on, just to prove the point that these people who paved the way, it was tough for them because they too had to face the bank.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a purpose. They understood what they had to do. So they send their children. Well, yes, we talk about the farmers and we talk about this, but these men maintain their wives, maintain their children, ensure that they have free meals a day, ensure that they have the necessary school books and school uniforms, so that the children can get higher education.
Mm-hmm.
And today, you have situations where guys are now driving for other people.
Yeah, well, a lot of the bus drivers don't own their own buses into this time. They drive for other people. So you might see a guy with a bus, but it's not his bus. Yes, quite a number of them have their own bus, but Cecil, they're driving on much better roads. The conditions are much better now than when we grew up having to traverse the country driving on those trucks. So these students now and these young men growing up are in a better position in terms of how they travel on the buses now. Basically, a bus would drive with about 16 passengers, Cecil, or if it's a huge bus, that would have about 23 to 32 people, maybe, depending on the size of the bus.
And most times now, those days, that you have seen buses with air condition.
Oh, yes.
In those days, there was nothing called air condition. Even on the first set of buses that came to Dominica, I'm not so sure whether they had air condition.
I don't remember them
Toyota
having...
Hilux. It was the Toyota Hilux.
I didn't remember they having air condition.
I'm trying to remember if they had air condition.
When I drove on Julius John's bus, I can't remember they having air condition. But now, to have a bus and you want to go in the tourist business, you must have air con.
Mm-hmm.
That's one of the requirements.
Or giving service. Not necessarily tourist business, but giving service. Because I am a tourist getting onto your bus.
Yes.
So I expect to get
the air conditioning. Right.
You know? So it was totally
different. It's totally different now.
It's totally different. I mean, in those days, you know, I wish that someone from...
What was the cost of a truck at the time? Do you know?
Boy,
a 1 ton, 3 ton.
I don't want to make a guess.
Yeah, I would like to know, if a caller would tell us, what would be the cost of a truck at the time when men purchased their trucks? Or 3 ton, how much that cost? Or 5 ton? It would be very interesting.
And I would like to find out too that when guys would sell their trucks, because you know that guys used to sell the trucks to buy another one for the next year, whatever the case is. If they would sell the boxes or sell the box.
Well, it's a truck you're selling. You must sell the
No, but you purchase a truck without a box.
Yeah, but I mean, a man not going to buy a truck from you and you take out the box. You'll have to add the cost.
But you purchase it without the box.
Well, add the cost of the box on the truck. I'm not going to tell you, well, take out your box and charge me the price of when you paid for the bus or for the truck. No, you would have to factor in the box with the truck when I'm purchasing it from you. I would not have to find a carpenter to build another box for me. That would be very interesting.
I would like to find that out. I would really like to know if the people before, when they sold their trucks, if they sold the boxes of the trucks.
But it's very interesting that I saw a fella, he has a truck, and you know they can take out the front of the truck where the driver is sitting. That can be removed as well, because I saw Adams in Portersville doing that. Taking one, I don't know if it's the hood they call it. You're taking it out and you can replace it with another one because it can move out.
Let's see what this caller has to say to us. Good evening to you, caller.
Mr. Joseph, the only time a truck driver take out the box on the truck is if they're going to move a house.
Okay.
Apart from that, the box cannot come out on the truck.
All right, I know.
Selling, you have to sell everything.
Everything, tooth bag eye.
Thank you very much.
And how much a truck would be?
How much a truck would cost at the time? Do you know, Mr. Parker?
I can
And
find out from you.
where did you buy those trucks? Who was the agent for the trucks?
Shillingford
It's a
was
Shillingford.
the agent
It's a
for
Shillingford.
Bedford.
Yeah, it's a Shillingford.
The garage was right in my street in Great Marlborough Street.
Okay.
The one you
Well,
come up
well, Leo had before?
before Leo.
Yeah, before Leo.
Higher up.
Yeah.
When you turn up by Jackson and you come up,
Yeah.
when you charge it up, the garage, the trucks was going straight in the garage. That was the garage.
Right.
And they were the agent for
Hillman?
no,
Vauxhall?
cars I'm talking about. Cars.
Oh.
Vauxhall.
Not Hillman's?
Austin?
Austin's?
No. That
Mook?
was
Mook?
Nasif had Hillman and those things. Is Vauxhall? No. But there was other cars, but I can't remember the name of the car.
Because basically,
Mook?
because what we had, with the time, what we had,
Mook was Nasif and those cars.
what we had in terms of the cars,
Those cars,
Vauxhall, we had
Vauxhall cars.
we had
right.
Peugeots, we had Vauxhall,
Peugeot
we had
was
Austin.
Japan.
Okay, good. Volkswagens and so on. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
It would be very interesting to know what was the cost of a truck, boy, at the time.
Good evening to you, caller. You're live.
Yeah, Sir Silver, if you take out the box on that truck, you could not drive that truck past.
Samoka DC. Samoka DC.
Took a van.
Leo acheter truck là. Leo acheter lorry. OK? Ou acheter sa truck, sa en box.
En boîte.
OK? You there with me?
Mais Cécile, si vous avez un truck avec en boîte, hein, ou gagne sa boîte, si vous allez gagner un homme, il n'est pas une boîte là.
Ah, boy. Good evening to you, caller.
The garage was called City Garage.
Yes, City Garage.
That's where I first started learning panel beating. It was called City Garage.
Okay.
Thank you,
Thank
caller.
you. Yeah.
You're welcome, man.
Yeah, City Garage. Yeah.
But when they were on the truck, Cecil, when they were going to vehicles, what language did they use? Because it would be very interesting to know what they were discussing. Was it in English or in Patois? Because people were not allowed to speak Patois.
No.
In those occasions. What were they doing on the truck?
When these people get on the truck,
Patois?
it's just strictly 92%, 8% maybe English or less, but 92+% was Creole.
Strictly Creole.
Strictly Patois. And you get on the truck, it's the best start, and tongue rolling is Creole.
Creole. Nothing.
Anybody can call and
nothing in English.
Can talk about English. English wasn't a language you speak on a truck.
So why is
talking Beth?
So why is they telling you at school in those villages that you cannot engage yourself in Patois speaking, but when you are socializing on a truck, it's strictly Creole?
Most times, what you find happening is that you have the adults are the ones traversing from one community to the other. So their language was Creole. So, for instance, in Penville, 100% Creole. Penville, nothing called English in Penville. Penville, Patekapali, PS.
What about Thibaut?
Thibaut, they had a manier trying to play English people. So Thibaut used to speak quite a little bit more English, a little bit more English.
Vehicles, what was it?
Like I say, Creole. When you batch it, Kawe is, as a matter of fact, Kawe is Creole talking. I don't think Kawe could speak English. I tell you, I don't think Kawe could speak English.
So once you're on Kawe bus,
once you're on Kawe truck, he welcomes you with
Creole. Strictly
Creole. Unlike Alex used to speak quite a lot of Creole, but Alex came from St. Croix, in L'Amérique. So he'd speak a little English and so on.
But the people themselves would converse.
Will converse
in Patois.
In Patois.
Okay.
I mean, it was really good.
Very interesting.
Yeah. In those days, I mean, Pato was highly.
What was when they had their conversation? Was it politics? Was it
No, man, it's
man and woman business?
Politics. But we never know about politics.
Man and woman business.
Let me tell you, if it's one thing,
woman running in the village.
If it's one thing, I tell you, you did not find these people talking politics or about. If they talk about the priest, it's something to say that the priest dry the river. The priest do something to you, or the priest will do something for you. But they will not speak ill about the priest.
Okay.
So you don't find it talking about religion.
But
those days, it didn't have 7 days like it have now. It didn't have.
It's strictly Catholic. So you had to Mopé was well respect on that truck.
On that truck.
Because if you spoke anything against Mopé, your name would be carried.
But they will speak about you based on what you did the day before. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, sir, I'm calling. I went to represent Granby.
Yes.
Earlier, some callers talked about Mr. Moses from Granby, and he talked about Mr. Parkhead. All these men drove trucks. Mr. Moses had a truck. That man drove that truck until that truck couldn't go no more. Then he transitioned to a pickup, and that's what he was transporting us back and forth to Roseville. Now, we talk about the tail boy,
the foot boy.
The foot boy. The foot boy for us was a cadet. They call them like that because they are the foot of the truck of the
truck or the back.
Yeah, the truck. I don't think I don't remember they being degraded as he said, in the community. They were not really degraded. They were looked up to because they were friends. They know my mother won this back by Dupini. She won this back by Brisbane. They know where to go and get it and bring it back to her. So they were valuable to the community more than degrade them. I think Rosa people have that kind of air about them, and they are the ones that probably see them like that. But in the part of the other community, it was not like that for them. So with Mr. Moses, man, I tell you, that man drive that truck and that van until he was up the Granby, went to Mozo by Belvedere, and you say, ooh, ooh. That's how the truck used to be scared because the finger to go down in the falaise.
Oh, yes.
That was some days. But really, this is a very nice, I love that program tonight because it brings me back to my way back to my roots, to my childhood, and that is so nice to remember that. I wish we had those days back. I really do, because it was fun time. You know, everything is too commercial, but it was more community based. Right now, everybody for themselves, so it hasn't got the same vibe that we had when we were growing up. But that is awesome that you are doing that, and thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you very much.
But Cecil...
But before you go, someone sent me some messages there, and the person said, Marley Peltier of Lubier had a truck too.
Marley, yes.
Mr. White from Woodford Hill also had a truck and was a driver. The person also said that that Mr. White used to have a shop where Jay's shop bookshop is today. Yes, if you remember that gentleman.
Yeah, man, I know him.
All in khaki.
All in khaki, man.
Yes, yeah.
Oh, man, he built his house in at the back of the public works there, man. I know him. He dressed up all in khaki. That was a shop. The
person also said that Bernard Tavernier, he was the first person who had a bus in Portsmouth, and which was driven by Patrick Foy of Colby Street. I wonder if it's the same Foy that I know, Mr. Foy, who has the restaurant.
Very interesting.
And the person also indicated that there were also Mr. Israel, Mr. Escott, and Mr. Gegre, who used to have and drive trucks from Kalibishi. And Gegre is still on the road today driving bus. And he said Metric Benjamin from Woodford Hill also had a truck.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. But the caller made a...
sorry about that. The calls are coming fast and furious.
Okay.
Good evening to you, caller.
Jay's bookshop, the man that was there, his name was Boise.
Boise.
He had a shop there.
Hmm.
Actually, you had 3 mini shop in Ozo. It's Eli, Boise, and Michael.
Michael. Thank you, caller.
You're welcome, man.
You're also on Nomozo. But let me tell you, Cecil,
Yes.
when you're traversing those roads, I know my mother would tell me that when she was driving, if she was going on Patty Riviere to Granby, that when she reached Bellevue, going up these hills up to Granby, she would close her eyes because, people was afraid of that road. It is not as how it was. So when you're going up those kind of cliff,
narrow, man.
Precipice, as the lady said, you would be very much afraid that thing would plunge into the precipice.
Another person confirmed that Fufu had a bus. And the person said Fufu bus had Roxy written on the front screen. And I think he was one of the first that had a new model Toyota bus in the 90s.
All right, that's interesting.
So we're getting the information.
What about your journey onto vehicles? Because I know when I myself was education officer of the North Cecil, before that road was widened, going down to Mr. Leblanc, when you leave Thibault, I myself was afraid of that road. Because you've seen the sea coming down there on that hill. And if another vehicle coming up and you going down, you have I had problems.
I would have liked.
I had problems. So I do not know how with these roads that you're telling me about that I saw in my time as education officer of the North, and these roads were very narrow roads for a 3-ton truck to be going up from Thibault, climbing up that hill, as I know, getting down that road with all these cliffs. Weren't you afraid?
I would like maybe to Smokey in the United States and Donovan Andre who are listening to maybe tell me how
my mother told me.
But I can tell you when you leave the new bridge
and you hear the vibration.
We so leave the new bridge.
Mm-hmm.
All right, when you leave the new bridge, you're excited. Yes.
Yes.
And then your fears start to grow when you reach Massac. Because my fear used to always be close by the Massac area where you had a cemetery there. That was ugly. You could just fall there. The road was narrow.
You're young boy.
Very narrow. Then you had another place just before you reach Maho in that turning there. It's wider now.
Oh yes.
Where they had the situation of John Rose Lindsay.
Yeah, going down there before you reach Maho.
Just before you reach Maho.
Okay.
Then the other area that I used to be fearful of
Monhabat.
Is Taru.
Monhabat they call that.
That's Monhabat.
Monhabat.
Right. Taru.
That day is dangerous.
Yeah, it's wide now.
Wide.
It's wide now. Taru area. The other areas that I would have been really scared on the west coast, Kulibistri, coming down the hill from Batali, coming down that hill in Batali.
Okay, down by Salisbury there, they have a big cliff there.
After you leave Salisbury coming down, and you hear that chugging, and you're checking, boy, let's make sure the brakes hold itself, because the chauffeur is now pumping his brakes. And they used to actually pump it,
Yeah, you have to pump.
You have to pump it.
You have to pump.
And you're hoping, boy, Mr. has the energy because the truck is filled of people, and the truck has load on it, so it's pressure. And then you have a nice ride from Kulibistri until you arrive Collioure.
When you're going up.
When you're going up the hill Collioure.
And you hear the vibration.
And man, that truck
humming.
But honestly, Thibault, going up the hill in Thibault, it is still very narrow.
It was very narrow, boy.
Thibault
humming
was, for me, the worst.
Humming up there.
While there might not be plenty of vehicles, let's take a call quickly and then we'll come back to that. Good evening to you, caller.
The problem, Cecil, is that if you have a truck that is loaded, you have to go down the hill in first gear. You have less brakes to use because the vibration of the truck, the vibration of the engine helps the brakes. If you go down in a gear higher than that and the brakes get hot, you have a problem. So when you climb in a hill, you have to put your first gear. When you're going down a hill, if you load, you have to use your first gear. And that would save you everything. Good morning.
But I was still afraid. You're still afraid.
Yeah,
Yes.
but you will be afraid because remember it's slowly going down, you know.
You're going down and
wait. But so they battery the truck. go up the hill and reach on top the hill before the truck. Because it's creeping up.
man, you get up.
Fellas just to come down.
You come down the truck, boy. You
road.
mad man. You run up the road. Wait for truck man below.
No. Where was I telling you? The truck going up the hill. That's what I live is a long hill. And it's going up in first gear, so it's not going up quick.
Yes.
You could debatter the truck
And run up.
You run up the hill
Yes.
and you reach on top the hill before the truck.
But I never do that.
Because
I never do that.
You never do that, but a lot of people used to do that. Ladies and all used to do that.
Well, when I reach Vegas on truck, I myself
thanks.
used to close my eyes or Grand Bay. I do not want to see that precipice.
Man, I
tell you, I honestly began to see the depth of the Grand Bay precipice when they was doing that road, when they was repairing the road at some, because you can actually see you actually on the edge of a very dangerous precipice. So when I was a young boy going up there, I would close my eyes.
Yeah.
I do not until I reach the flat.
So someone sent me a message and said that this is Emil Talbot. I'm sure that person must be in Newtown area, maybe Newtown Lubia area, had a truck too.
Okay.
But really and truly, one ton or
3 ton.
3 ton.
The vibration.
Man, let me tell you, it was really a testing time for passengers.
For passengers.
I mean, the roads were rough
and bumpy.
I wish my children would have seen what I am talking about. I mean, rough, bumpy, and
like you're on a horse.
Like you're on a horse. By the time you reach Roseau or your destination,
you're
tired. That is real. So I never understood how the drivers Monday, Wednesday,
energy.
Friday, and Saturday had that energy to do that.
And then you have that wheel, that steering wheel, and you did not have power steering.
No power steering.
No power steering.
Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, he talked about the healing Tibo was bad. What about Philip Saban? Philip Saban is the worst healing in the country.
Oh man.
Philip Saban hill is very steep. Even today, when I came to Dominica and we went to play with Paso Vegas, that thing, I was scared. I said, I thought they fix that. They didn't fix that. It's very steep, and he's right. When the truck is going, they're going to change gear when you take in places. There are some places in Bellevue, we have to change gear. There are some places in Fishley, we have to change gear. And sometimes when the truck is have too many passengers and too many loads, they have to come out. So the truck can go up the hill, and then we walk and we batch the truck and we go there. In that day, we batch, right? In batch.
Batch, yes. Debache. Driver telling you, debache. Marché. Okay, Bachako.
Yeah, we used to jump off the vehicle. We used to jump off the vehicle because I think we're going to specifically in the car and then we could back up. So really, actually, those days were scary days on the road. Do you know there was an accident that happened to a man when I was nursing back home in Pitchley? He went down that precipice. And that man, both of his lungs collapsed. And that's where I really learned how to take care of a patient with a sensitive up to today. And I'm like, wow. And when I went back to Dominica and after the hurricane, and I'm seeing the bottom of the fire, I said, wait a minute, that's where the man went down. And I am seeing it's not deep no more. So apparently, with all this erosion and stuff, the silence is not deep no more, and there is no much terrain, no how you call it, the trees, those big trees. So therefore, if I can see it, I say, wow. I was very taken aback because I know there was silence all of us were standing when you get there.
Thank you. And she's very right. You know another scary place when I was EO South, but I never like it. Going up to Petit Savan around the corner. When you leave Bagatelle and you're climbing up that hill, and then you have to take that corner in one shot, man, I used to be afraid of it. That is very dangerous.
Our drivers
we are good, you know.
Are great drivers.
Because that one in Petit Savan, around that corner, getting down into Bagatelle, It's very scary. You can see the precipice right across you. If you just miss your gear, straight into down the falls. So I cannot understand. We have to congratulate these truck drivers because they had courage to drive that truck up those areas.
Someone also sent me a text saying that there was Mr. Boston. He lived in Cock Street. On a Friday night, he would bring his produce from Shawford to Cock Street, to his home in Cock Street,
right? I know.
To be sold for his neighborhood. So he had his truck to do other things, but also he would go on a Friday to get his provision in Cock Street in Shawford to be sold. So that tells you so much things that trucks did before.
Yeah, these trucks were very, very much helped us in our social development, and the footboys and the truck drivers, Cecil, were men of tremendous courage, because to stay on a tailboard for 3 hours, traveling from Vickers or Penville into Roseau, passing through the Imperial Road, standing, is something else, and being bumped up as though you're on some kind of horse or donkey was something that we cannot forget. The legacy of the truck drivers and the footboys.
No, we shouldn't. I mean, and that's why I felt last week that it is important that we speak of the footboys and the truck drivers and the value of those trucks. And that was prior to we being independent.
Prior to pre-independence.
Pre-independence and post-independence.
Yes, I would say basically, when did those trucks actually, passenger trucks, you think, went out of circulation? Was it in the early 1970s?
No. I mean, bus came to Dominica.
No, I'm talking about trucks. When did these trucks, it would be very interesting to note, when was the last truck, passenger truck, that existed in Dominica? Was it in 1970? We did 1975?
No, man, later than that. We had trucks in
1980?
We had trucks all in the 90s.
After Hurricane David, we still had trucks?
After Hurricane David, we had trucks. I tell you, we had trucks in the 90s.
Passenger trucks?
Yes, for sure, we had trucks in the 90s.
It would be very interesting.
We had trucks in the 90s.
It would be very interesting to find out which truck was the last passenger truck in Dominica. That would be and who owned it?
I don't know if there are still any other person in their passenger truck. I don't know that. What I'm saying is, if people from the community can call and say, okay, Vickers, we don't have any more. The last one was in
Granby. Granby don't have more passenger trucks.
No,
for sure.
Granby don't have any.
Vickers, I know, don't have any more passenger trucks. I know that for a fact. Marigot don't have any more passenger truck. So apparently all villages in Dominica where the trucks existed as a passenger truck is no more. But it'll be very interesting to note the period or the year when these trucks stopped traversing and which village had the last passenger truck. That would be a very important piece of research.
And you know that person also say good evening to you, caller?
I think in the 70s, around 75, you know.
Was that?
Pick up on them.
Hold on. You said passenger truck, you say?
Yes.
Stop in 75? 75 Udi?
Yes.
75 Udi?
75, sorry, in the 80s.
Yeah, in the 80s. Because after the passenger trucks came the pickups.
Yes.
There was still the passenger trucks in the 80s.
With the pickups?
While the pickups were there. After
that, the buses and them come.
Right. So you had the bus, you had the trucks, you had the pickup. The pickup and the truck existed together.
Yeah, together.
Right. And then after you get the buses, and the buses eventually fade out everything in the process.
Yes.
So maybe by mid 1995, we saw the full fledged of buses really
coming in.
You know.
Yes.
Yes. That's how I think I would put it.
Johnny, say bagay sana guada trucks.
No. Guada don't get a go bus. To say bus the air condition to be 10.
PS truck, no.
No, truck hour. That is. Mem say old time bus type that is go. But même après ça, à Guadeloupe, on va comme si ça meet bus encore. Non, il pas dit si ça meet bus encore.
Oh, luxury, man. Guap bagay. Very interesting, though, to see the evolution. Right now it's aircon SSO.
Good evening to you, caller. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm doing fine.
Good evening.
You want to call us back because I'm not hearing you clearly at all? Just call us back, please. I'd appreciate that call. I'm sorry. You know.
But you're getting text fast and furious, man, Cecil.
Yes.
Man. You spend the whole night taking messages.
Someone
man.
said, Emil Tikok help PM scare it. That means carry him to school.
Emil Tikok.
Yeah.
Carry him on truck.
Yes.
So Scared had ride on truck.
Yes. So that's really good to know that people can actually inform you of the things that happen in those days. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening, caller.
Yes, good evening, sir.
Yes,
good evening.
And how are you?
Fine.
Well, I find you all have a very interesting program. Very, very interesting. But what I seem to be getting is that you all are talking as though the driving and the roads.
Oh, my partner from Marigot.
No. I realize what it is.
Marigot had to come in, man. Marigot, I agree with you, man. Defend your title, man.
Belated happy birthday to you.
Belated happy birthday, boy.
Yeah, okay, thank you, sir. We all are talking about that driving thing there and the transportation and truck and thing in Dominica as it was yesterday. It was a very, very long time.
Mm-hmm.
Marigot, the first truck in Marigot, when they started with truck to carry passengers to Roseau, it's not Bedford truck came late, you know. There will be a truck, Stanley Musgrave, and you're talking about vehicles all the time. One of the fellas I know from that side, since in my little boys, I used to go to Roseau and harvest stock, was Walters, Rufus Walters, a big 5-ton truck. You have to go around that corner maybe 2-3 times to make one. Anyway, from Marigot point of view, the first 1-ton truck we had there carrying passengers was Edney Sylvester. Then he bought a 3-ton. Really, you're right with the number of passengers, is 16 and 32. And here you talk about roads and the truck and safety, those are important. But all about the road and the safety is due to bad driving. Let me tell you something. The same 3-ton, the same Bedford truck you say without brakes there. You have to use your gears when you are loaded and when you are going downhill, like on how steep they are. You use your gears, your low gears, and you are in no problem. I used to make 5 trips of bananas from Marigot to Portsmouth in 2 days, and I never had power in a 3-ton truck. And sometimes, according to how some fellas get stranded, you take another one and you go and you help him out halfway. I hear Mr. Brady talking about the Lakers Road and the hill. All they have good roads now. The road from Marigot to Portsmouth to Lakers before the Freedom Party did the pattern was a disgrace. That I used to work down there as a Mazda, small Mazda. And I used to run that road every day. And it's when Freedom Party came to, I can remember Hesketh Alexander come to Port Acres and tell me just now you'll have Marble Road. But I used to run that, I say, and then the problem is you're going down a hill, the hill is steep, it is rough, you use your low gears. And now we have a problem. Right? So I don't know. And I looked at Dominica Road. When I look at St. Lucia, I always respect a Dominica driver, not always, and a St. Lucian driver. But the only place in Dominica, if I may, roads were looking really bad and steep and dangerous was the last road I cut at the Savan, you know. They stupid with Savan. That to me was the most dangerous road in Dominica on the border line. But apart from that, you just go coolly, man, and you haven't got any problem. Yeah.
But I never knew teach that you used to drive truck, banana truck.
Partner, I move on.
Partner, you never told me that when you were in the fraternity.
Well, let me tell you, that is why sometimes I hear you all talking. I wonder where you're talking from. I move from sailboard. I move from sit down there. It's 3 days a week I used to go to school, you know. There are 2 days in bananas. right? I go to from Marigot to Rose. I go to Marigot from Marigot to Rose on two different ways. You take the bus, Stanley, the truck or boy, you go to Portsmouth. You take the lunch, you go to Rose. That's the first time. Little boy, I can remember that still. There's nothing I forget. Or when the road was cutting, you have to walk some part they call Bassey Will and go come to Adels and take an old man they used to call Casimir and go down to Rose. Let me tell you, I'm 76 years of age and I can remember the first day I go to school. Right? So those things are very, very simple.
What about the big? I never heard you mention all the big. When I used to be coming down through Bells, coming down to Marigot, all these big trucks that used to be driving those bananas, them fellas.
Yeah, but I joke. I mean, in those days, because I know I attacked you, Junior Charles, on that. Because I tell you what of that vehicles they did it. Sintra did the vehicles, the Portsmouth to Marigot Road. And I think Melotier did the other part from Grande, and they couldn't make it. So when they reached at Pocasset, Young Bell, they had to cut down the road and make it just like a feeder road. Because when I asked the Prime Minister, she said, "By Sambo, if I don't do that, the road will not reach Marigot, and I want it to reach." And they had to get Melotier to come and help Russian something to reach there. So that is why the road, if you know from Pocasset, it was very, very narrow. And then I agree with those big trucks. You have to stop or go down on the verge and thing there. So you didn't have to wait for time. And if you're a driver, and it's very, very easy. It's discretion and people use their head. Mm-hmm. I tell the car in 6 balance, suppose what you're going down, your side is the left side. But a man is coming down with a load and you're going up. You take the rough part of the right side, a good driver and go on. It's cooperation and understanding. Yeah, those are very easy. We used to take that as a joke.
You said that the Bedford trucks were not the first ones. Which were the first trucks coming to Dominica?
You had Austin, you had Comer. Then when Bedford came in, Bedford took over. Before you had Vauxhall in the cars and Austin. Yeah. But when Bedford came over, Bedford really took over. And I agree, Bedford has a fault in brakes. Any transport, if you keep your foot on that brake and just holding the brakes, it will get hot, and then sometimes when you press it, you won't have. I drive in somewhere, I drive at wicked rate. I used to drive at wicked rate too. And I don't touch my brakes, I just use my brakes. I hold my brakes and tap it and hold my brakes and tap it. If you hold brakes down, you tend to slide and run off the road. Those are from experience, right? And I have done some dangerous, well, I don't call it dangerous for me, so simple, and as I was younger, but I did from Woodford Beach picnic to Princess Margaret Hospital in 45 minutes.
Boo, you're madman, man.
No madman. Look, my last girl there, she was about 50. Well, last time the mother, and all mother children were born around here and here, but they changed it to Hospital Road. When I took her here the early morning about 3 o'clock, they had to go to Rosewood. That time I had little Mazda, a Ford, no. What was the name of the March, and he said March. And I gone down to the road, I gone down. When I was going down at Tainfield, she asked me if I was focusing. Right? Right? So, and I didn't find no problem going, how you use the road? If you meet stupid fellas, I tell you, boy, no matter where you are, even up to now, you are driving on the road, you have to drive for other people, not for yourself alone. Because you meet some stupid people, so you always have to be scared for that. But I sent to show that I got to Trinidad, people who Trinidad asphalt. You don't leave going down to, well, when I go to Trinidad, I must go to, where you call it, the beach there. Shagaramas. you must go, the road there just like Dominica. Right? So Dominica has marvel road, man. I don't know, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. There is no place in Dominica you cannot take an outreach without any break. The speed, natural, good driving, and things will do well. But you all are bringing up some very, very good points here and making people know how it was before. That's good. That's good. That's history. So I like your program. I like your program. Right?
Well, let me say it's a pleasure hearing you, Bossman. At your 76th birthday, your brain is still focused. You still remember a lot. Parkinson's haven't started setting yet. You still keeping your memory fresh and alert. Thank you for calling.
The other chance when you talk about Land Rover.
Land Rover.
Like, if I have a problem with a vehicle, I'll go come to check it from here. So come Land Rover, you have to know about Land Rover. But it's a very good vehicle to drive. Very, very good and very safe if you can manage it. Land Rover is the thing that pull out all the bananas in the road in Marigot and the West Bay and all those places. I don't have a problem. And Land Rover brakes gave up with me at the top of the Bush Hill.
Oh, that was the hill I was trying to remember. How did you navigate with your free-ton truck down the marsh?
You don't get panic. I was coming down in my third gear. Just thinking, when I press the brakes, I see go flat. Yeah, I had 5, 6 of us on the jeep I didn't anything. I just play cool. I double clutch. I bring my second gear. Right? When I bring my second gear, I go along. Push the first gear. Right? When I push the first gear, I go one. The other way you can do it, if you go to your third, you pull your ratio, but you have to do it gradually. You don't maxing up everything. You pull your ratio and you gradually on the clutch. So therefore, with the ratio of the four-wheel drive, it will slow down. And then when all the old guys, remember, they asked me, and I was going to come out from hospital to see a situation. But how you driving so slowly now, so slowly now? I will tell them anything. I come down, I come home, when I reach on the day where the first I say, boy, I think I'm going to send the brake. So my little boy and my partner, compatriots, everyone go and say, oh God, but the different with any brakes at all. And let me tell you something, you're talking about Land Rover. That time, our little boy in Rose, when I started to teach and things like that, there's no place in Dominica I don't know. There's no place in Dominica I don't know. Well, I forget them now. And when I'm not at college or at the institute away, used to go, just as used to have what you call ECCB education, man, I know the whole place, man. So you have to know, that is so exciting, eh? That's what I say one of these days I'm going to take some talk, get a transport and take some talk to go someplace. I'll forget some of them, but I know all the places, man.
Let me challenge you before we leave. Now you must put together your biography, or do you want an autobiography? Which one of them you want? You need to put those ideas of yours. Don't go to the grave with it, my comrade. Put something down.
Mr. Peter told me when I was telling him about DAP and he was part of it, to me I should write. I said, man, I left all the notes there. And my notes are in my head. People come up to know, people want to know things about Marigot. They still come here to ask me. I said, but what is this, man? No, you have to learn, but people, I don't know, we tend to forget. We forget too easily. Right? And that is what I like the program especially doing.
So tell us about Beckett. What about Beckett?
You're going to trouble him.
What about Beckett?
You're troubling him.
Beckett? Which one is Beckett? Beckett. I'll bring you the it.
Well, I'll leave that for another time.
Will you take him on?
No. Talk. Let me just get it. I'll pick it up. Now, he talk about going down to vehicles. I was running vehicles road without brakes and go down the same hill, no problem. He's just there's man. Yeah, go when you shot coming out there and you go down there so easily.
Anyway, caller.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for your education.
You'll have a good program.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you, caller.
You know, next week I want us to focus on boxing plans, because we need to. For me, it's important for us to recognize our improvement, our development
in agriculture.
If we talk about the boxing plant, we will get to know about the struggles of some of the farmers, and it would be good that we can get them to call in. So we're saying, I want to say that very early, that we need to talk a little bit about
you're going to agriculture.
Yes. Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, sir. Cecil,
Yes.
I have been listening to the program since it started, and I want to do a little mention.
Could you lower the volume of your radio, please?
Okay, I'll just go a little. Let me tell you, the first 2 men I'm speaking from the southeast, Grand 4 years.
Grand 4, okay.
Yeah, the first 2 men that went to England, one bought a Citroen truck and one bought.
Go ahead, caller. Go ahead, we're listening.
Okay, and then the man who bought the Citroen truck, his son was driving. They learned to drive the Citroen truck. Now, something I never heard. I heard my good partner calling, but a man by the name of Paul, who used to live in Pottersville, used to transport people from Grenfell on a Citroen truck. And then when the loads of dashing used to pack, as you all mentioned, the football at the back of it and so on. What I want to say is that I think history has made on the Southeast because people from all about used to come to Rosalie to pick up these trucks and so on to drive to town. And then when these people used to go early and so on, they used to reach in Rosalie early, make their marketing and come back. But what I want to say, another man by the name of Vernon Coffey had a rental truck, and that he used to employ on the government road when the senior over used to open. So I think this truck helped a lot of people.
Vernon Coffey, yeah.
To develop themselves and so on. So what I want to say is that at that time now, these people stole this truck when it came, things came modern with the technology that is moving. But I think that really helped certain people in the community to develop themselves, develop their children, and to grow and make them be better. Now, these people are better and they live, I think, a future, for their children and so on to develop. So I am saying a lot of other people, because I know people like Kid Bedardin from Loda used to come there, assist people. Another fellow from Botica used to call Oliver Stenville, has another Wilson talk, used to help people. In those days there. And so on, I think it was very important with this talk and so on to help people and so on. I just want to mention that because I listen to the program and I don't know what mentioning these things. But this is history. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would have thought in the whole discussion that people would also mention to us, because we were making mention of the fact that these were long trips. At what time did the chauffeur collect his money? One. And two, if there were any bathroom breaks. I know when I traveled, there was bathroom breaks. I do not know if it was deliberate bathroom breaks, but you'd find that when those bathroom breaks would have been done, somewhere or the other, people actually come on board the truck. More people.
Well, no, the driver knows that the distance you're traveling, people want to use either number one or number two. So there had to be a transition in terms of pause to allow the passenger to do whatever. Because the distance that you're traveling would require you to do something in terms of relief.
So really and truly, it's important that we as a people get to know exactly how we went about doing our transportation. So tonight we spoke and we have been speaking on the issue of the truck drivers, the footboy or the cadet, as we normally would say, and we also spoke on the issues of the trucks. And so tonight is really for me a good night in the sense that we are informing and helping to educate the young people and to make them see today that our chauffeurs have graduated from what they were with trucks today, where they have buses. Let's go to the telephone. Good evening to your caller. Good evening to your caller.
Yes, Cecil. I forget to mention some other important people being from Granby. We had this driver called Shaye. He's from Granby. Carry banana for people. And then we had Koch. Mr. Koch number on his truck was 2023. And then we had Mr. Felix of Mr. Tetmon. Now, I heard you ask this question, when do you have bathroom break? Now, from Granby to Rosewood, there is no bathroom break. You can wait to pee when you get where you go. And then from and how they get paid. Some driver, you have to pay them when you get to your destination, you give them their money. Now, when the young guys used to go to cinema in Roseau, these guys used to, Mr. Moses, they used to jump on his back of his truck, stay on, and when they get to Port Oswald, one of those places that they jump off and they don't pay. And so when these truck drivers get to see that sometimes some of them will ask for their money in advance. So it just depends on the truck driver. But really and truly, it was very bad. I don't remember having no bathroom break when I was traveling on this truck.
What do you think of today's world in Dominica in terms of transportation?
Well, the transportation now, first and foremost, the roads are improved tremendously. Because remember, when you were going up to, when you're going from Roseau to Granby, and you get on that Falles by Belvedere, and another transport coming towards you, man, I tell you, you had to make sure, and if they're coming too fast, they had to make sure they take the right turn, or else they can end up in the Falles. So I have to honestly give Granby drivers, these people were the best drivers in my opinion, in the world, because when I came to the United States, I say Dominica have the best driver in the whole world, because the thing that Dominican driver have to go through, when you come in a car, and the truck already on you, you have to quickly think, and then these people, they hardly got into accidents. So, and they know where and how to drive those little corners. You know when to slow down, when to go fast. So right now, the people that are driving trucks and buses now, they have it made, because people like Mr. Moses, these are older people, they were driving with caution. Right now, those guys drive too crazy. But I am so thankful that the roads are wider and better now, so it makes transporting back and forth easy. And to be honest, the falls are not as deep as they used to be before, because all that big heavy trees, Maria take all that anyways, all that, you can see the falls now, so it's not that deep, but before, boy, it was darkness down there. Now you can see light. So the transportation is much better. I think people should have, to be honest, now in our times, I think the public should take these drivers seriously, because they have to pay their loans, they have to pay their family, that's their income, and some people don't like to pay, and you need to pay them for them to be able to pay what they have to pay themselves. So that is the message I think Dominicans should take when it comes to driving. You cannot get a free ride. Not a free ride. They have to pay. And then you have all your luggage. That's their money. And when I was in Dominica, I see people who want to pay. I say, pay the man. Pay him, you have to pay him. Whatever I ask you, pay him. Because if you go to another country, you pay those people. Why don't pay your own people? You all come to America, you all have to pay.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
I love that. Passionate about that.
Welcome.
Yeah, I just want to say good evening to Peter.
Peter who?
Peter from Vickers. Because I know that Peter himself, I didn't speak too much about him, but I know Peter is one of the individuals that I would like to believe drove all about in Dominica. Every community in Dominica, Peter drove.
What he has? He had a truck?
No, he didn't have a truck. He was driving for people. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi, guys.
on the humorous side of the conversation.
Yes.
Growing up, there was a story going around when the first trucks were introduced in the country, and the first people seeing the lights of the truck.
What did they say?
Would that mentioned before?
No.
What did they say?
Asukia coming.
What is it?
Asukia
No,
coming.
they say. I think it went like, Daddy, I see something coming up, and the eyes shine like a flambeau.
and say what?
That was the light.
They were saying Sukuya.
Yes.
No.
What they were saying?
That's not the story.
No, they said
the first truck that came in a particular
light,
village, when they saw the light and they heard the vibration, they say, Daddy, it's a wua, and the eyes shine like a flambeau.
Well, it maybe have different. Okay, for some you got it right. Maybe you got it right. But I know growing up there was a story like this.
But don't call the village name, eh?
And the other thing I do about bathroom break, there was no bathroom break. There was bush break. There wasn't bathroom.
I was just trying to use the correct political term.
Yeah, political bushman alias Hazi, man. That's how people feel.
Have a good night, sir. Good story.
Have a good night. Bathroom break.
Boy, say that bathroom break.
Alias Hazi,
bush break.
You go to your bushman.
Easy, man. Say bush break. Good evening to you, caller.
Hi, Cecil.
I hope you're not having a bush break.
No bush break.
I called before and I heard you mention Peter.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I know Peter from Vegas because he works for my cousin Bernard Tavernier.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking about him because I left Dominica in 79 and haven't seen him since.
I saw Peter about 2-3 weeks ago.
And how is he, Cecil?
He's doing well. Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, he told me that he's something like 88.
Wow.
You know?
Yes. Well, Cecil, I plan to go to Dominica for the Christmas. And I knew Peter as a little girl. And it would be nice to go visit him when I get home.
Certainly, you should. You should.
You can meet him. You definitely, once he's alive, you'll see him.
You better go see Peter.
Peter, he goes to the church, Catholic church, ever so often, every day to ring the bell.
Okay, he rings the bell and he's the sexton then. He tolls the bell.
Yes.
It is so funny because you were talking about the trucks and my cousin Bernard taught him how to drive.
Well, I know Peter because my mom told me that in 1958 she came to Tong and Peter was the one who transported her to Tong.
Okay.
So that's a long time ago.
Yes.
And I know that I had conversation with Peter and he told me that in every community in Dominica, he drove for somebody.
Yes, he drove for Bernard.
Yes. So he drove in Grand Fond, he drove in Soufriere, he drove in Grand Bay.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
You must go visit Peter when you come to Dominica.
I will, because I have known him almost all my life because I left home and never even thought about him. But now that you mentioned him, I would be happy to go visit him.
Yes. And he will only talk patois for you.
And no English. So you better keep sharp your patois.
I know that very well because he spoke very little bit of English when he was much younger.
Yes, Peter loves his Creole. Not that he cannot speak English, he can. But only pour parler Creole by.
In the Dominican style, eh?
I remember the last time I met Peter about three weeks ago. I said, Peter, ou te ka vini Tobino le mote T-boy. Avec la teni on madame, ou toujours te ka vini voir. Sa ou te madame like. Peter said to me, so ka di mo Cecil, ou te T-boy, e tu ka veza.
C'est pas moi.
Somebody non, moi dit, moi pas ça comprendre tout temps ou te ka vini. E il dit me comme ça. Moi ani aimé femme là ça mais bon pas jamais aimé il dit mon l'autre non he told me about another person.
Pas cette femme ça
no he said to me she's in America because she didn't live in did you live in Tobino? did you live in Tobino?
No, I am from Portsmouth.
So she's not her for sure.
Okay,
not her for sure.
Yes, I am from,
all right.
I do Away and because Bernard was married to Vida del Sol from Vegas.
From Vickers, yes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. All
Anyway,
right.
thank you,
Thank
caller.
you.
Thank you very
Yeah.
You're
much.
very welcome. Have
Yeah.
a blessed evening. Get home safe, everyone.
Thank you very much,
Yes,
ma'am.
thank you.
Okay,
Yeah.
bye-bye.
Yeah. So yes, Peter was
He was
Peter
a sharp boy, man.
Sharp. Peter was
Very sharp, man.
Peter was the in thing in
In
terms
thing.
of a driver.
He was the kind of guy that the women look forward to
He
meeting.
drove for many people. Look, someone told me that he drove for a guy called Terrill Foyer from Vickers. He drove a Freetown at the time. He also told me that he had driven for Mr. Bontiff and Mr. Andre. So Peter really
He had a lot of experience.
Yes, a lot of good driver.
Good driver.
Good driver.
But the lady made a very important point, Cecil, in terms of the the skills of the drivers.
Mm-hmm.
Dominican drivers handling those trucks at that time.
Mm-hmm.
You had to have a special skill to be able to navigate those narrow roads.
And that is true, because those roads
Mm-hmm. At the time. Mm-hmm.
in those days were not easy. They were not easy. So as I said, next week we can speak a little bit
about the boxing plans.
Boxing plans.
That would be very interesting.
I would like the farmers. I would really like to get some farmers to call us to tell us a little bit about the boxing plans, because I personally do not know much of it. Because Montana book fair. When I say fair, going garden, and we can maybe also speak about cutting wood. It is important that we remember that.
Papi son, when you're cutting wood.
No, cutting wood for fire. We had to go and cut wood for fire.
Oh yes,
Those
because
days-
when Christmas
those days,
coming,
we didn't know nothing about coal.
Oh, no, when Christmas was coming, you had to select a tree
Yes.
and go to the woods and cut the tree
Well,
to
not
prepare
just
it for.
not just Christmas, on
holidays?
Adams,
Every day?
You had to get some dry wood somewhere, not far from home. I mean, in Tobino, we were not getting it far from where we were living, and to cut the wood and to have it placed
On your galta, on
not
top,
on the galta.
where you
No,
used
no.
to put yours.
We used to put our own in the kitchen, on the floor, because the floor was actually pure mud.
Okay.
So we still have a kind of shelf, and then below that shelf we used to have the
wood to dry.
The wood there to dry, and to have it for use. Good evening to you, caller.
I'm just thinking, the way you're describing the drivers, the past drivers and so on, some of the other, the word celebrity come in mind, and as well as these people like the first celebrities around,
Yeah, they were.
I just thought of it. They were, I think, just think of it properly,
Yeah, you're right.
Just move on. You just move on, But in the day, that was the celebrities.
The celebrities of Dominica, yes, the boys, the boys with the trucks, they were the celebrities. They were the thing.
Yeah.
You're quite right. That's the appropriate word.
It's just a thought.
No, it's not. It's a correct thought.
Yeah,
Celebrities.
thought is very good to
Very
remember
good.
that. Yeah,
celebrities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thinking of that,
They were.
They were. You know what I'm saying? I mean, to get to the hospital, to get to town, to get anything that you need.
You had to depend on
To
them.
buy your fridge in Roseau, to buy your carpet in Roseau,
Right.
to buy your stove. They were the men.
They were the celebrities.
Yeah, they were the celebrities.
I like the word.
Yeah,
Very
I
appropriate.
like that, Boy, it's as if we have to go and sleep and the telephone is not stopping. Huh? Good evening to you, caller.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening.
They say you have a very interesting topic. And
Very interesting, he said. Yeah, go ahead, caller. We're hearing you.
I struggled in finding the number. I'm calling all the way from Texas. I've been listening since the inception, and I would like you to give out the number a little bit more.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Could you give him the number?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
I heard you speaking about the trucks,
Uh-huh.
and you mentioned the current president. His dad had a truck. His name was Stefan.
Stefan
yes.
Sevre.
Okay. So he used to fly between Capuchin, Clifton, and Portsmouth.
Yes.
And we used to get rides on him like that, basically on Tuesdays and Saturdays when he came up to go down to the market, bring people to the market in Portsmouth. But the first person who had a truck in Clifton was James Lawrence.
Could you repeat that name again?
James Lawrence.
James Lawrence. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's related, the uncle to Raymond Lawrence. And in Capuchin, there was a gentleman named Pedro Joseph who also had a truck, and they used to carry the copper to Belfast. And they used to load the trucks on Sunday nights, Sunday evenings, load up the truck with all that copper, and there was scarcely space for passengers at the front, maybe just the two front seats, because everybody wanted the copper to be sold or to be bought down in Belfast. There was also Benson, was the son of Mr. Pedro Joseph, who also drove truck and St. Hilaire from Clifton. And in Tukari, there was this gentleman they called Lise Lamont. And in Cottage, there was a Mr. Adrive Victor. All these trucks plied between Capuchin and Portsmouth mainly, but also went on to Roseau. Now, before that, they used the Trans-Insula Road to go up to Roseau, and we used to leave very early in the morning, like 3:30, to go up when they used the Trans-Insula Road. But since they did the West Coast Highway, that cut down on the timing, and you get to Roseau earlier, and you did not have to use the Trans-Insula roadway to get. Now, those trucks were very integral in helping all the kids from Capuchin all the way down to Savonpa when we were going to Portsmouth Secondary School. We used to get rides on those trucks. I mean, after a long day, we got to walk back up. So those trucks really did help us. That was a great relief for us. And for that, we were very, very, very grateful. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much for the historical perspective.
Good information. Yes.
Very good.
Yeah, I love that. You
very insightful.
Took your time and you were able to explain to us every person and the role that they played.
In terms of
I'm very happy that you could do that
in the education of the children, because before that you had to walk.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate your program. So please continue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. And we do appreciate your intervention.
Yes. And then, thanks. Yeah. And I think next week we have to. That's a problem that I have. I always think that everybody knows the numbers to call.
Yeah, please call them again.
1-800-327 if you're in Dominica and you're on a landline. If you're overseas, you have to call 305-432-9744, and you don't have to pay for that call. Okay. So if you're overseas, it's 305-432-9744. Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, good evening, sir. I'm Brain. I say I want to go and call a little tonight.
Good evening.
I have to call to correct you, Cecil, on one thing you said earlier.
That's fine.
Fine.
Yeah, you said to crank the truck. When you crank in the truck, you use the fender.
No, I didn't say use the
fender. There's a hole.
There's a hole in the fender.
Yes, listen to me. You said there's a hole, but you're looking for where.
Okay, where it is? Where is it?
Fender. It's not the fender. It's on the bumper.
Bumper, that's correct. Thank you very much. Bumper.
It's on the bumper.
It passes under the radiator. So you know they have a technique in cranking a truck.
What is that technique?
The technique is when you go in the slot under the thing and you turn it, you crank it and the truck stops. You have to pull that thing out fast, otherwise it can damage your hand. I see man damage their hand, and I see man burst radiator already.
Okay. So timing is important.
If you hold it too tight in the slot of the engine, when the engine starts, it's turning on its own. Remember the engine turning.
Yes.
Another thing. First truck. I know for Mao and Granby, I can tell you of two permanent truck drivers in Granby in my days little boy, Mr. Sentod and Mr. Elwin. And then, they have a fella that was Cadec. You see small black all, I know small black, long time Cadec in, truck. Small black are both driving on Granby Road there now. I see that boy being truck, And then that another fella they call him Bo. I think his name was Sonny Boy. He was Cadec and he ended up being driver for Elwin and them kind of things. I didn't want to go in my hole and thing. And I call and talk about the road from Kitty Savan to Billis. Cecil, first time in my life, I cry driving on a road. I cry like... Let me tell you, Cecil.
You cry? A man like you, that's so brave.
I cried. I cried.
Why you cry?
I was the driver. We were promoting the World Curl Music Festival at that time of Eddie. Eddie was on that.
Eddie Toulon.
Yeah. And we were promoting that. And when we went there, we decided, well, we're going to pass on that new road. That thing had just caught. No pitch, parish on that thing. And boy, and we're going up that thing. And see me, boy. And we're going up that hill. And what was most scary about that thing, they had just put that, so there was no trees. We say like, no. Well, there was nothing use now, but whatever it is, they have trees there. But nothing, everything bare.
Everything bare.
And when it come to going down, when we reach on the top of that hill, and going down, boy, that was something else. But the truck life was good life. Another thing we used to do, I hear you for that. You see, when you're talking about hopping truck, that was our daily. That was our means of transportation of going to school from Maho to Massa. We used to wait on Kubawi Hill. That is you know where Kubawi Hill is.
I know where it is.
We used to wait on that hill there. And when the truck come, according to load it up to put it first gear, you must slow down. We open on the tailboard. And when it go down less point, coming up the hill to come by the 70 there, that hill, we open up there and go to school. And we used to go, sometimes we used to go Massac and wait by Jacob.
By Jacob, yeah.
And when it's coming up there, Fromage Hill, we open Fromage Hill, and we're in Maho in the village. We must go slow, so we open up.
So nobody ever fall down then?
Fall down, yeah, man. A lot of men fall down. No, let me tell you something. A fellow mentioned about the police under the cliff. Boy, you know drivers, and not only drivers, even we, are like a school boys, boy, we get nice horses from Blanchard, you know. And them boys, Blanchard and some of them, even one they had from Maho to boy. Nice horses from them, man, you know. On tailboard truck, and make you go down and them kind of thing there when they come on their motorbike, boy. Nice hustle, you know. And then even them truck drivers, like I was saying, nice hustle, you know, boy, from that man. Anyway, they were doing their job in their way, but they take advantage of a lot of. I can never forget. You see me? I used to say I was a target for Mr. You know?
maybe because of your legs.
I don't know. But I used to freak out on Mr. But we end up being nice.
All your brethren know.
That one say I was in a thing. I don't want to shit from all the program talking about show. So I don't want to talk about police. Let's forget that one. Yeah, man. But the truck life was good life, man. The man mentioned Simon, first man to have truck in Maho. And Maho had a lot of truck owners.
That's good, true.
1 ton and a lot of them. But I think the oldest driver, to my memory, I think Doreen Paul, the partner in life.
Mr. Paul.
Was one of them fellas that hold a truck for the longest, as far as I can remember, on our street area. Yeah, I think he was one of them people that hold that truck. And although talk about St. Joseph had some major truck drivers too, you know.
Who were they?
St. Joseph.
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking about, all you call Chris Ford, and you're talking about...
Chris Ford, man, says so.
You have some young boys like Omega.
Omega, yes.
And them fellas driving truck and carrying their bananas thing. Yeah, man, so there were a lot of fellas, some coffee boys, and seeing at trucks too. Yeah, man, a lot of trucks.
Thank you very much. That name was very important, Chris Ford. Yeah, very,
Christian?
very. Was it Christian?
Christian.
Yeah, he liked his calypso.
Christian, they used to call him Kosho, he died.
Kosho, he died.
Chris, big father.
Yes.
They used to die truck long time. Anyway, but truck life was good life, boy. Up truck, a lot of things. Hopping off and running up the hill like the man said. That was joke for us, man. That was fun.
Mm-hmm. Anyway, caller, thank you very much. But it seems to me they want to keep us all night, man.
Yeah. All right, yeah.
It seems to me.
Yeah. Thank you.
It seems to me they do not want us to leave tonight, Cecil.
Boy, let me tell you the truck life.
the truck life seems to be so exciting.
I told you so last week.
fellas don't want us to go and sleep,
but
man.
I can't get disappointed. I've not heard anyone from the Kalinago territory to tell me what
they had trucks, huh?
Yeah, man. Kalinago, I tell you, Kalinago territory.
Oh.
Cassie Bruce, they haven't called to tell me something.
About the trucks.
Point Michelle haven't called to tell me. Point Michelle had 1 ton.
1 ton?
I remember a guy they call Reggie.
What about Sansofa Good Hope?
Sansofa Good Hope, they haven't called to tell us.
They had any trucks? No, Peter Sufre.
Yeah, man. How they would get to Roseau? How they get to Roseau?
Well, maybe they had to walk down and go to Cassie Bruce.
Well, they would have to tell us that.
Well, very interesting. Very interesting discussion.
We heard from La Plaine. We heard about La Plaine.
We heard Marigot.
We heard
Granby.
We heard Granby. We heard Vickers. We heard Portsmouth. We heard Cottage,
Clifton.
We heard Collio. We heard St. Joseph. We heard Maho. We mentioned Granby already.
Yeah.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening to you, caller. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're your friend, Cecil, your friend.
Oh, the man from the Carib territory?
The historian from the Carib territory. From the Kalinago territory.
Oh, my friend, man.
That is Barry.
Mr. Barry. Oh, that's my buddy. Good evening, buddy.
There are children of the many trucks, but mostly at Pinson, man.
Oh.
People like Wilbur, Simeon.
What they had to 3
ton?
What
they had 3 ton, 1 ton?
1 ton.
That's what I call him Jojo. That's what I call Son. That fellas, I said Luis already.
Mm-hmm.
We had a fella called Patrick Laville. That was my first teacher. Then before we had road, we used to go down all the way to, they used to live in Hatton Garden, and we passed through the Concord here now called back, and then go into Concord to get our trucks to go into Roseau.
Mm-hmm.
And we used to get trucks from Marigot to had trucks. After that, I called Mr. Boboy. You remember Mr. Boboy?
I don't remember. Oh, Telemark, yes.
Musgrave.
Musgrave, yes.
Yes, they had trucks from Marigot, and we had from Wesley. We had Sparrow, we had Rock and Roll.
So you're telling me that you'll have to walk from the Kalinago territory
to Concord,
to Concord or to Hatton Garden?
Before we got Motor River Road.
Mm-hmm.
To pick up the trucks.
From there to go into Roseau.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to live there till 2 o'clock in the morning, because you have to walk to reach to Concord. And if the river is high, that's it for you.
So if the river is high between Concord,
to the same thing.
Okay.
If the river is high,
you have to sleep.
You have to sleep under the boxing plant, man.
Wow.
In Concord.
Wow.
And then next day, when the river a bit, you would walk up the hill and back to your home in Carib territory.
Wow.
Okay?
Wow.
But Atkins people used to walk down to Pigua.
Closer. It's closer.
Cross over the Spring Bridge. You know that Spring Bridge or the River Bridge?
Yes, the one that's there presently.
Huh?
No, man.
The bridge that is there presently.
The Spring Bridge?
The Spring Bridge is not there, but where the bridge is presently.
Oh, yeah, the Spring Bridge was. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's Spring Bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You have to cross that to go into Marigot. Okay?
Mm-hmm. All right.
And you pick your truck from there and then into Roseau, because there was no road in territory yet and no road in Castlereagh either.
Wow.
Wow.
So you had to pick your truck from there. Truck, lorry. According to some French people, lorry planche.
Lorry planche. Take your lorry planche.
So Barry, you're telling me that
yes, that's interesting.
You all had to, if you come from the Bataka area, Siniku and so on, you had to pass through the Hodridge back.
Blackridge, yeah.
Yeah, to Concord.
Sorry, yeah, to Concord.
Mm-hmm.
But when Castlereagh got road, people in Sineku used to go to Castlereagh.
But,
okay.
But before that road, people from Siniku would have to walk to Hatton Garden.
Walk to Castlereagh. Because Castlereagh got road before territory.
Okay.
And then there was several, though, when we got trucks now, there was a fellow with a truck, 3690. We used to call him Goshen Cyril. He just passed away.
All right.
And then he had truck, and then the first pal rep had a truck too, Mr. Daru had a truck. And then these were all normal truck in the Roseau, but sometimes the truck would be sealed, and then was the trouble.
Wow, but all you see me there, man.
And that kid called Nicholas also had a truck. Well, this was a pass away, man.
Boy, that was me there.
Yeah, man, and the first fella with a boss in Sally Bear was Ryan Butt, 9 to 8, you know.
Boy.
The truck high was 9
So
to 8.
hold on. You're telling me before Castlereagh had road, The people from Siniku, they had to go to Roseau. They had to walk from Siniku.
Right. Into Hatton Garden. Or to go down to the Horseback Ridge.
Well, you'd have, if you want, you could, if you do not want, you'd have to walk to pass through Shimelita and go into town.
Shimelita?
Shimelita.
Yeah.
That means you have to walk to Grand Foyer.
Pass through Good Hope, Sanso, very Petit
Who's
and down to Grand
Sauka di Molana.
That's
Barry. Utan Saudi Mona. You are telling me that if you don't make that side, you have to walk from Siniku to Cassibros to Good Hope, Saint-Sauveur to Grand Fond,
and past Shimelita,
and then past Shimelita.
Yes.
Oh, that was in the olden days.
Boy, that is misery.
People walk to Roseau too, before.
Walk to Roseau.
Walk to Roseau.
You take 3 days.
3 days.
Yeah,
oh dear.
You walk one, you reach Roseau, you do your shopping, and next day you come back. It took 3 days. Or if not, some fellas would go by boat, man.
By boat.
By boat, they would take boat. Because when bananas earlier on, Castle fellas would take boat and go into Marigot and sell there.
Sauka di Mona, first time I heard that.
Well, that's breaking news.
Well, I don't know what I was saying
you telling me that Cassibros guys used to take the bananas by boat and to traverse?
But Barry, let me ask you a question.
By sea.
Where the complexes, there was a boat, banana area, banana selling point, you know.
So let me ask you a question. Where did the Kalinago people take their boat now?
Well, we had our little bays in Salivia, you know. Salivia had a bay.
Because that's the always rough.
Atkinson had a bay. Huh?
That's the always rough.
But never mind. But it's also good seafarers, you know. You know that?
Okay.
And at that time, did not have motor, you know, Cecil. It was sail.
Well, your sail.
Yeah. Sail, and if you have no sail, you take your oar, brother.
Brother, you row.
Yeah, you row.
Brother, you hear that?
Yeah, man.
And today the children talking about the same miser.
The same miser. You know what it is to walk for 3 days? Boys.
You pass it by boy, you know.
So you're saying to me that when road came to the reserve, that Atkinson people were the ones who had the first set of trucks?
Yeah, they first got road. Atkinson first got road because they took the road from Hatton Garden, passed through the territory, and then they did the road by stages, you know.
As when?
As about 63, 64, 65.
But just yesterday,
Yeah, yesterday.
less than 60 years ago.
Yes.
Yes, but it is 20 years.
20 years,
I said it's less than 60 years.
Yes, but that's very interesting.
We had to walk to school, you know, nothing like right.
Boy, they seem good, miser. The Kalinago so miser.
You have to walk. Well, I don't think it's only Kalinago that seems miser, you know, Cecil.
No.
And Brain, because all about where it is in that motor river road. You got to walk, you know.
Walk, mache.
You know that?
Yes.
Because I don't think the East had any road.
No, the East had no road. They would have to, Rosalie, Grand Fond would have to walk through Shimelita. La Plaine. Petit Soufrière, Good Hope, Saint-Sauveur.
Right. So
those were the days.
La Plaine and Dalis was near to Roseau, man. They would pass through Petit Savant.
Pass on the hill.
Yeah, on the Grand
Point Mulat.
From the thing, so it was a little bit rough, but some people enjoyed it to walk.
Keep you fit.
But now the norm is that after truck, the buses, you know, and then some.
No, everyone has his or her own.
But my comrade had his own bus, you know.
Barry?
Oh yes. The man had a massive bus, air conditioned.
A Costa.
A Costa. Yeah, I know. Well, comrade, man, it's a pleasure hearing you this evening.
Yeah, man.
And tell your lovely wife I say hello.
I do not meet you too much when I come to Roseau.
We'll meet again, man. We'll meet again. I'll make contact with you.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good evening.
Have a nice evening.
All right.
Thank you.
I love the program.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Boxing plan,
Yes, you call us next to tell us about boxing
a boxing plan. Next time.
Please
call us.
Yeah, when we had boxing plan,
No, hold it for next week.
Hold it for next week.
Hold it for next week.
Hold it for next
Yeah,
week.
we had trucks and jeeps.
Hold it for next week. Hold it for next week. All right.
All right.
All right, Barry.
Barry, man.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
All right, thank you. Bye-bye.
Boy,
Yeah,
that's
bye-bye.
interesting, man.
But that's interesting about the Kalinago territory. But that is me there.
You have to go by boat, and you either row or you take yourself. No motor, you know.
Boy, oh my
You think
God.
it was Montana?
Just have to take a deep breath, boy.
You have to take water.
Good evening to you, Baba.
Cecil,
Yes.
good night.
Good night.
Good evening.
Super South truck of Quayton.
What's that?
Soufriere?
Super South Quayton truck.
Soufriere.
Soufriere.
truck.
Soufriere.
Yeah.
Who had it?
Prince, you know Rosé died.
Yes.
Where Rose is trying Super.
Okay.
Where is the one Super?
Soufriere. All right, that's interesting.
By Castable side.
Oh, Philippe Soufriere.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. Rosie. Yes, I know him.
He's not my sister.
Mm-hmm. I know him.
Vanessa.
I know him.
All right, good night.
Good night. Oh, I know the guy.
Prince.
I know it is, you know. Don't expose.
Don't your partner, boy.
I'll check your partner. Don't tell Cecil. I know my partner. Take care. Later, my brother.
Boy, let me tell you.
Boy, that's interesting.
We could go the whole night talking about
But
trucks.
fellas would never leave. Those truck business
Boy.
would make us slip on the road, man.
No, but the good thing about it is that the story of the Kalinago people is
It's very
amazing.
interesting. It's very amazing.
Yeah.
And getting it from Barry, who's
Yes.
a man who knows the Kalinago history,
Wow.
is very important.
Let's go back to the telephone. Good evening.
Good evening.
Cecil.
Yes, sir.
You and Bryn. One day I came from vehicle. I decided to pass through Marigot to come back and pass through the Car Brazil. Just as I leave Concord and climb up the hill, two children stopped me at the car right. And I didn't stop, but suppose God stopped me a little higher up. So I stopped and I wait for them. But now I almost finished the Car Brazil and the children on board. So I asked them if they forget their house. They said, Mr. We don't reach yet.
That means cynical they were going.
Partner, they walk in.
I have to know if they forget their house. They said,
Listen, I gave a lady a ride, as you're saying that, from Siniku one time. Just about, maybe again about 3 weeks ago.
Yes.
I gave a young lady, she had her baby and her sister, to go to the Jolly John Park to watch cricket.
That's far away.
And as a young lady, by the way, I know I have not reached Jolly John Park, but were you really serious that you go to Jolly John Park? She tell me yes. She said, I do that all the time. I do that all of the time. That is a distance.
It's a long distance.
Anyway, but I put them down. I say it's a good thing I picked them up.
I too. I do not know what happened that day. I was driving, and I happened to. The lady had a baby, and I felt let me just stop for the lady.
And the lady went to
and she had
Jolly
a sister with her.
And she
younger
went to
sister
Jolly
with her.
John.
And I said, Ma'am, I just stopped for how far you going? She said me Jolly John. So I heard Jolly John, but I don't think it's Jolly John because I don't think you were walking to Jolly John.
But you have to Jolly well drive.
And midway, I said to her, have I passed your
Jolly?
No, I said, have I passed your destination? I said, Jolly. Have I passed your destination? She said, no.
I just
said, and when I put on the lady, I said to her, I wish I could come back and bring you home.
You were Jolly.
She said, I will get a ride.
It
was unbelievable. That is a big distance. Much as for these old days.
For the old days.
Anyway, Parker, thanks.
Thank you. You start asking for Jolly John.
Why? No.
The thing is Jolly. That distance.
People think it's joke.
It's not joke.
Let me tell you, this place is big.
Very large.
The Kalinago territory
yes,
is
lot of
big,
territory.
you know.
Yes.
And I can tell you, you know.
Cecil, it's really challenging, you know, when we're talking about hard time and all kinds of time in Roseau, you must be out there to understand what hard time is. Bon time, you know, they have, and they're talking about moving time.
Someone told me that Mr. Winter Seraphine from Good Hope had a truck.
Okay.
So just
Good Hope,
imagine.
they're talking in.
Yeah, Good Hope selling their own.
Own their own vibes.
So really and truly, you know, I'm happy that we could have had this program as we come into the end. Could have had this program tonight because we need to sensitize our people, especially now as we are into the independence celebration. We are 44 years and growing. We need to identify
our history.
too long that we have our young people who do not know anything about it.
And just
and
talking.
just talking. So I really want people to know about it, the young one in particular. Good evening to you.
Good evening.
Hi. Hi, good evening, Cecil and Brain.
Good evening.
I mean, it's such a pleasure hearing you guys, speaking about that. I'm actually from Portsmouth, so my recollection about trucks is that, to be humorous, Mr. Stefan Saver, which is the president's father, used to travel from Portsmouth to Roseville using that Emperor Road, and then he had a special tree that he would stop by in Day Wash. And when he reached there, he said, "Tout from the San PC."
Tout from the San PC relief.
Yeah, he said, "Tout from the San PC," because where his next stop is Roseville. Because it used to be almost like a 3-4 hour drive. Because he wasn't a fast driver.
Okay.
He was somebody that was driving that fast.
So he selected a tree then. He knew his tree.
Yeah, he had a special map. And when he reached on Day Branch, he said, "Tout from
this San PC." Where?
Now the other joke I heard about trucks is that when Marigot people saw trucks for the first time, one guy said, Mama, I will lorry a cumbra. He had 2 big eyes, shine at the flambeau, and Ebola, roar.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
All right. Boy, it says you were right, in terms of taking a relief. Having to travel for more than 2 hours, sitting, or 3 hours, you had to have a stopping point.
You had to. Because in those days, before you went onto the bus or the truck, you must take your bush tea.
To prevent you from urinating?
No, not preventing you from urinating. To warm your stomach.
Okay.
You have to take your bush tea. Your bush tea is made of liquids. So you would have to let off.
Right. But that's another interesting conversation at some point in time in terms of the type of bush tea you had.
Yeah.
Because bush tea was a very important element of our...
Maybe after the one of next week, we can look at the issue of bush tea.
We could look at bush tea and bush medicine. That would be interesting.
As you're saying that, Monday next week, from the 7th, from the 3rd, as a fact, tomorrow, for the week, they'll be talking about bush.
That would be very interesting.
Talking about bush, all everything bush. DBS himself will be on board talking about.
That would be a nice one.
Bush traditionals. Good evening to you, caller.
Yes, good evening. How are you
doing? Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, the topic is about trucks back in the days, right?
Yes.
And I'm just calling from Granby to let you know there was a few trucks back in the 70s.
All right.
You have people like Terry Lane, who had a 1-ton truck. You have people like Elo Charles, and you have people like Shire.
All right.
So Granby had lots of trucks back in the days.
Thank you, caller.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, caller.
Well, Cecil, it seems to me
we have to go.
You put a topic there that we would, if we have to stay, it's still 2 o'clock.
So next week, I think
it's not late night.
Next week it's midnight now. So
midnight now.
So I think we have to say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We have to say bye-bye. We were supposed to end at 11:30. We give you 30 minutes more. Brain, your last words.
Very interesting topic. We look at the social and economic development of Dominica in terms of the transportation or trucks and footboys, and we have to, as one caller said, they are what we call our heroes, really heroes. They are our superstars in terms of what they had to do to help us during that time.
And
good evening.
And in my closing words, I want to say that we have come a long way. We have seen the magic of development in Dominica. And when I say about the magic of development, when we have heard from people like Barry, who indicated that the Kalinago people less than 60 years ago didn't have roads to get into Cassibros or to Marigot, what they had to do. It says quite a lot in terms of our advancement, our development as a people. 44 years of independence, and we now need to identify the things that we have done. And tonight we spoke about footboys, truck drivers, trucks, and the role that they played in the whole development transformation of Dominica. Because of those truck drivers, because of those trucks, it was important that central government saw the reasoning to have better roads. In doing those better roads, while they were cutting them, they were not being asphalt. And so what happened? You had rocky roads, bad roads. Today, 44 years later into our independence, you heard some callers made mention of the standard of our roads and the beauty of our roads, and that you can drive to any far distance within an hour. And that speaks volume of our own development as a people. So next week we'll be talking about
the boxing plants.
Boxing plants and cutting of woods.
Yes,
for fire.
For fire.
You know, so I want people to actually engage with us.
Yes.
To talk about that, so we can look at the whole improvement, because in terms of the cutting of the wood, we have to look at the graduation of cutting the wood, which means that you had coal pots. From coal pots you had kerosene stove. From kerosene stove you moved to gas stove. From gas stove you moved to electrical stoves. So next week we'll be on again. Thank you very much. Wherever you are, just want to say thank you so very much for staying tuned with DBS Radio, the nation station. And as we always do it, we do it the best way that we can. Thank you very much, and stay safe while we go across to BBC for our world story. All right? And next week again, we will be on with you. And stay tuned to DBS Radio, as the voice of Hazare Williams will wake you up in the morning. All right, so let's take our theme song and then say bye-bye.
Chalet, mi soleil qu'a levé, tant de mélodies, musique qui a chanté, senti un petit vent douce, lever ma chaîne ni pied, senti liberté ni commencement la journée. La journée. Voyez un petit prière pour l'amour et la paix. Merci pour la vie et voyons un petit café. Sortez